Please come to order for this March 3rd regular meeting of the Bridgton Planning Board. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see, we're missing member Madsen. Hopefully he'll be back in April. So I will appoint Jessica Warner as a voting member for the purposes of Middle Ridge application, and then I'll appoint Erica for the others. Okay, so you guys are going to have to keep track. Alrighty. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of February 2nd. I found one typo before you make a motion. That is on the bottom of page 1. And Laura Lee, there is a little equal sign that somehow decided to place itself there against your will. So, does anybody else have any corrections or comments? Okay, in that case, I'd accept a motion to approve the February 2nd minutes as presented, except for the typo, moved by Ms. DiPietro. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cook. All in favor, please raise your hand. You can raise your hand, Jessica.
For that one.
Okay, now we'll move on to the minutes of February 3rd. Yeah, let's see, February 2nd, now February 3rd. And I also found one typo in this, which is on the second to the last page, near the bottom, where it says the board and applicant scheduled the following dates. In site walk, it says March 26th should be February 26th, which has already happened. So with that change, unless there are others, I move to approve the February 3rd minutes. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cook. All in favor, please raise your hand. You good, Angie? Okay.
Sorry.
5-0. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Speakers may be limited to 3 minutes. This would be public comment that is not on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
Mark Lopez, 438 Commons Drive, Bridgton, Maine. Board members, I was in attendance at a public hearing a while back when you guys changed the subdivision regulations to remove wetlands, slopes over 25% in areas subject to easement and calculating the minimum lot size. When I listened to this, I came to the mic and I asked, why are we doing this? And as I recall, no one gave me an answer, okay? I then went on to express my concern about how expensive housing was and how there was a general lack of housing that's affordable. And there was a general consensus among this board that everybody agreed with that statement. Okay, I then went on to explain that the price of a house starts right in this room. That every time there's an ordinance that's passed or there's a process that makes it more difficult to create a house lot, you make it more expensive, you drive up the cost of housing. I came across an article this weekend, and I asked Brenda to send it to you guys. It's a pretty good article. It's certainly worth reading. Now, my next comment, board members, is not directed at the board. It's an observation about the ordinance and the process that does not always seem to work towards the best outcome. The land use ordinance does not always allow the board to apply reason, common sense, and discretion to reach the best possible outcome. The board is forced to review applications from the corner that they've been painted into by the land use ordinance. And if you're in one corner, that sometimes puts the applicant in another corner, and nobody wins in that scenario, and I think this has to change. Any proposed project that you review should never be more appealing and desirable than what ultimately gets approved, because the land use ordinance did not allow the proposed project while expressly permitting the alternative. I have a real-life example of this, and that's the expansion of my storage facility. I proposed an 11-foot tall building that would not have been visible from 302. Was told the land use didn't allow it. So I spent 2 years of the board's time, 2 years of my time, and $50,000, which would have been much better spent donating to local causes in my church. But I ultimately got approved a 35-foot tall building that'll be quite prominent from 302. And I ask, was that the best outcome? I don't think so. So my point, board members, is this. When you are interpreting and applying the land use ordinance during the review process, the best outcome may be derived by the board understanding and acknowledging the alternatives that are available to an applicant, which are expressly permitted in the land use ordinance. What you are not allowed to do should never be more desirable than the alternatives which are expressly allowed by the land use ordinance. If this happens, it is clearly not the best outcome, and it is not good planning. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes, ma'am.
if you have that written, could you submit it
Certainly.
in writing to, I guess, to Laura Lee? I do need to make one comment, is we have given rationale for that change in standard in subdivision, particularly around a couple of items, and it involves not including land not suitable for development as part of a density calculation, so that you don't crowd the land, overcrowd the land in that situation. So I don't want to say a lot more because we're not here to debate it, but the board certainly thought through that. So that's
Okay,
I guess my comment.
What I made was a statement of fact. I said, can anybody here tell me why we're doing this? And there was no answer given.
I feel like I gave an answer, so.
Okay, your answer, and I'm quoting, I believe, was that I think we're doing it because developers use wetlands in the calculation of lot density. Okay, I could go back and check the tape, but I think that's what was said.
I think,
I'm not, like you said, this was public comment, this was my time to
I
make a comment.
understand,
I don't want to debate.
I don't
with you
want
either.
it to sound like this board just ignored the comments you had previously. We had a discussion around that whole topic. So I understand what you're saying too. Anyway, moving on, is there anybody else who would like to give a public comment? Not on the agenda, please.
Kevin Rady, 51 Alpine Road, 63 Alpine Road, and there's places in between, I guess. Comment about conditions that you all put on, decisions that you make, an observation. Sometimes they don't get fulfilled. And there's a couple of instances that I think are fairly prominent in the area lately, and they'll probably get more prominent as we roll the windows down and spend more time outside. I'm going to compare it to, make an analogy, if you will, a pitcher who throws to a right-handed batter, a right-handed pitcher, and he gets a strike on the outside of the plate. And so he throws the next pitch a little bit further outside and see if he gets that strike. And if he gets that, he goes further outside. Seems like some of the conditions you've put out there have been receiving that kind of treatment, as in they've been not necessarily following what was suggested, not necessarily following what was in your decisions, and seeing what was acceptable with nobody noticing, if you will. On the other hand, there have been a couple projects that have come through in the last 3 years where I remember one in particular where we were expecting at the appeals board to have a lot of people in opposition, and they weren't. and afterward, in talking to the engineer who did the project, is because he had gone and taken the conditions and talked to the abutters and had long conversations with them about what they wanted, and then gone and done that. And he had no delays, no people in opposition, and a happy neighborhood. So just throwing that out, it's the time of the year when we're going to see some of those things. And I'm not sure the town has the, just to be clear, I'm looking forward, not behind. I'm not sure the town has the ability to do it as much as we probably should be doing it. And so it's certainly not directed at where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any more public comments not related to today's agenda? Okay. So there's been a suggestion to move up the Kimball Acres lot split to the beginning, instead of having them wait to the end, because it would be short. The only issue is we normally on the agenda and in our bylaws would open with the public hearing, first.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'm waiting for one of my display items, so it may make sense
I
to,
suggested it, so.
okay, it may make sense if we can to take that out of order. I will be here in 5 minutes, so.
Okay, so I need to ask the board if they're okay with this modification, which, okay. The public has to be okay with it too, since the public hearing is first on the agenda. Is there anybody here that objects to Kimball Acres lot split going first? In the interest of time? Anybody on the Zoom that objects? I know it's not Zoom anymore, but I'll call that to the end of my days. Okay. All right, a little bit different because it's a public hearing, but since people are willing to do it, we'll go ahead. The board should probably vote, given the information, since typically this is the stated agenda. So I'd make a motion that we move new business 6A, Kimball Acres lot split, Kimball Road, map 19, lot 18, up to be next on the agenda, which would be number 5, and then follow the agenda from there. Is there a second? Second by Ms. DiPietro. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, so in that case, since you had the rest of the items, you're appointed for Kimball Acres lot split. Okay, so before we get going, dive into it, this is a lot split on map 19, lot 18 of Kimball Acres. Notices have been sent. The applicant has standing. They're transferring land from one lot to another lot. So based on that, do we feel that the application is substantially complete?
Yes.
Don't see anybody objecting. I'm going to suggest we don't need a public hearing or a site walk. Is there anybody that wishes to recuse themselves? Okay, so whomever is representing Kimball Acres lot split, which I guess is kind of a split, not exactly.
So,
If you could please let us know, tell us about your application, what it is you're trying to do.
yeah, so I have just over an acre property that has 25-foot setbacks on either side of the property. And my house is right in the middle. I don't have room for anything to add to my property unless I want to move it much farther back on my property. What I'd like to do is build like a one-bay garage off of our house in which we need to push our line 25 feet back. So I have approached my neighbor and asked him if he would be willing to sell 25 feet into his property just to push my setback out. So it would just meld into my current lot.
Okay, and, so in doing that, does anybody have any questions while I look for something?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, under number, in the form you have to fill out for lot split, under 10, deed restrictions, there are no deed restrictions that would be problematic at all for this in your,
So I
Deed?
guess I'm not sure of what a deed restriction would be to the property.
on your deed, it
Yeah.
would say it somewhere at the bottom, towards the end of the document.
I think the only deed restriction you have is,
There's a right-of-way in the spot.
Uh-huh,
but there's also a, I assume you're Alexandria
Yes.
Waterman?
yeah.
There is a deed restriction which is, which should be recorded on here. It's referenced the other plan, but there's a stormwater buffer for phosphorus control on the back end of your lot, which is this right
Oh, the
here.
back, yes,
Yeah,
that back
okay.
section, yep.
Which means it can't be cut, so
Yep.
forth and so on,
Right.
so. so you do
None
have
of
a-
what we're doing would touch the back of the property. I mean, we're purchasing it out, but we're not building anything back there or altering the back of the property.
And, I assume you haven't completed the bill of sale yet, or have you completed it and,
No, it's a partial, it's like a purchase and sales with a deposit. We don't complete it until it's completely approved by you and we get our deeds changed over. That's when the final for the sale
Okay.
would go through.
all right? Any other questions by anybody? I think other than we need to make sure the deed restrictions. Let me see, I've actually got, and it was included in the, of course, this is so small I can't read it, hold on. Included in the OneDrive was the prior approval. The original plan, and we should look at that map and just see what it says about. Yeah, so it doesn't list on the deed the restriction for, or excuse me, on the subdivision plan, that there should be a deeded restriction for the, it's probably in the findings of fact for the buffer. So, I'm gonna assume we're going to approve this, but you're going to want to have your surveyor just add another note that, the buffer cannot be, is for phosphorus control and cannot be cut into. And
It's a field. That was my subdivision. There's not a tree on it. It goes all the way back to the stone wall. It's a field.
right, but I think you want to denote where the buffer is for, right, on the deed, otherwise anything could,
I mean, I think it references the plan, but I won't get involved.
yeah.
I was gonna say, on the map, you can see the back of the lot is lined out for that area and that restriction.
That would be considered when getting a permit as well.
Could you,
Placement of the garage.
for the garage.
Could you
Which would
come
be
to the mic,
up to the house.
please?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't go near that back section.
all right,
That's the point, is I can't build to the back of my property. That's why I want to push my property line out so I can put a garage on my
but
house.
what's to keep anybody else after you sell it from building in the back of the property?
It's still on the survey that I have. I didn't,
Yeah, could I ask the CEO to come up, please? Brenda, how does this get handled? And I don't know, I know there's an engineer sitting in the back of the room, but if there's nothing on the subdivision plan, other than something if there's not a note on the subdivision plan saying that buffer area or for phosphorus must be maintained as is, how is that handled? Does there need to be a note?
No, because, I mean, they won't be able to build anything there, because when they come in to get their building permit, it'll have to prove that it's not disturbing that part that's in the subdivision plan because you can clearly see, if you didn't see it and it said there was a 250-foot buffer or whatever the case may be, we definitely would want to know, but it's clear on here that you can't do anything with that.
Is that acceptable to, normally we do have a note added, that's a deed restriction. I can put it in the findings.
That would work too.
Is the board satisfied with that?
Yes.
All right, then, are we ready to deliberate? I'd suggest since this is a lot split, there's both preliminary and final here. Okay, so, I think most of this was determined, if not, well, all of this was determined when the initial subdivision of 5 lots was created. So much of this is not going to be, isn't modified from, so as I go through these standards, if you think the land swap modifies one of these standards, please speak up. Pollution. Sufficient water, municipal water supply, erosion, traffic, sewage disposal, municipal solid waste disposal, aesthetic, cultural, and natural values, comprehensive plan, financial and technical capacity, surface waters, groundwater, floodplains, freshwater wetlands, farmland, river, stream, or brook, stormwater, spaghetti lots prohibited, lake phosphorus concentration, impact on adjoining municipality, land subject to liquidation harvesting. Okay. The municipal criteria, phosphorus export, I would just put a note that, for this, that buffer is to be maintained. Relationship to community services, retention of proposed public sites and open spaces, preservation of natural and historic features, traffic impact, shoreline zoning, easement for drainage ways, utilities, required improvements. You normally would put stakes down where your lot line is. Is that something you can do?
so the detail of where my corners will be is in the middle of an easement, so I can't block it on those corners.
I see, but then you're gonna be 25 feet in to do your, so you don't have to block it. All you have to do is put a stake at each end so you know where your lot line is.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So I'll put that in the findings, minimum lot size and lot frontage. It doesn't make lot 5's, lot 5, both lots still retain the same size. Monuments, that's what we just talked about, actually. Road signs, roads. Non-conforming roads, sidewalks, water supply, fire protection, sewage disposal, surface drainage, long-term maintenance plan, buffers. The original at the time this was approved, there was no requirement for the 15-foot perimeter buffer. But it's a field, so I don't think there's anything that we can require there. That's it. Anybody have any further comments? Okay, then I would accept a motion to tentatively approve the plan for the Kimball Acres lot split on map 19, lot 18, pending the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Okay?
I so move.
Moved by Ms. DiPietro, seconded by Ms. Cook. Any further discussion? You get to vote on this one, Erica. 5-0. Okay, you're all set in about a month. April 1st, not a joke. Is it April 1st? Yeah. No, April 7th, actually. April 7th will be our next regular meeting, and the findings will be, they'll be signed at that meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck with the garage. All right. Next on the agenda is Middle Ridge subdivision, map 14, lot 8. The board, this is a public hearing for the preliminary subdivision plan. Let me explain how the public hearing will work for the benefit of the applicant and the public. Once the hearing is opened, we will ask the applicant to provide an overview of the evidence and the total plan. When they are done doing that overview, then we will go to the public for public comment. I ask that you please come to the podium, provide your name and address. Per our bylaws, anyone opposed to the application would go first. All others would go next, and the board would go last. I ask that, again, this is per our bylaws, that the comments made are relevant and as much as possible to our standards, are not overly repetitious. Now, there may be some comments that are relevant to the standards that I'm not expecting the public to know the code inside and out, so, but they should be pertinent to what's being reviewed. And I also ask that we all treat each other with a level of decorum and civility. If debates start between members of the public and the applicant and the board and the board, except when we're supposed to debate, I'm gonna redirect. So that is that, and so with that, I'd like to open the public hearing. All righty, and I see the owner is up at the podium, so name and address,
One of the
please.
owners. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members. My name is Mark Lopez, 438 Commons Drive, Bridgton, Maine. I'm here tonight with my son representing NTGM Investments for a full-lot subdivision on Middle Ridge Road. This is Royce's first application before the planning board, and he is certainly getting an education. I've appeared before this board for 19 years and done more than 24 projects, and just about every one of them, with the exception of my storage facility, was approved as submitted. Now, a 4-lot subdivision is located next to a duplex that we're currently building. Some of the members had the opportunity to see it the other day. It's on an 80,000 square foot lot on the northern portion of the property. It's 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, and just under 1,000 square feet. Our plan is to convert this to a 2-unit condo, and we anticipate a sales price of around $280,000 per side. Now, I know at the last meeting, Jim had given a different price. It's probably because he didn't believe anybody could build anything for less than $370,000. So let me give you some context on that sale price. The current median home price in Cumberland County is $535,000. Today, the median age of a first-time buyer is 40 years old. And first-time buyers account for only 21% of home sales. We believe the product that we are building now and that want to build on the rest of this will help address these statistics. We've spoken to a mortgage broker, and a first-time buyer can purchase one of these homes with 3% down and have a mortgage payment that is comparable to the rent they would pay on a similar unit. If the demand for these homes is what we expect, we would build the same duplex on each of the lots, but that will ultimately be dictated by the market. If the market's not there, we're not going to build the product. We'd put up single-family houses. Now, as I noted earlier, this board has acknowledged that there's affordable housing, or housing that's affordable, is an issue, okay? Acknowledging it is really easy. All you got to do is say it. Addressing it is difficult, because to address it, you have to take action. So we believe that the product that we want to build here is a step in that direction. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jim Seymour from Sebago Technics, because he'll give you the technical presentation.
Mr. Lopez, could I just ask one question?
You sure can, the other chair.
Just to be sure of standing, the company NTGM,
Yeah.
you own that company, or you and your son own that company?
Royce and I.
Okay. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Seymour.
Thank you, board members. My name is Jim Seymour, Senior Project Manager and Civil Engineer with Sebago Technics here in Bridgton. Tonight, as Mark had pointed out, we're representing NTGM Investments LLC for this 4-lot subdivision. The property is located on Middle Ridge Road. We have 4 lots we're proposing with approximately 1.84 to 2.24 acres per lot. We were here at an earlier meeting last month, and the board gave us some homework to do, and as such, we have presented the board with some additional information. That, the largest being the hydrogeologic study, which was performed by C.V. Mahar, Andrew Gobiel. That is in your packet and clearly shows that with the 4-bedroom unit design, HHE 200s, which is the septic design, that the lots fully comply with the nitrate loading of 10 milligrams per liter. They do not empty on or off the property, therefore they meet the plumbing code. Additionally, we have given you information with regards to the nesting area of blue heron sites. Royce here had provided some drone imagery where we've added it to the packet showing that what we appear to be the closest herring nesting site is more than 1,500 feet from our property. Secondly, we did confirm with Lake Environmental Association of the location of the midnight crossing of the salamanders. That is further down Middle Ridge Road, approximately 1,000 feet beyond our furthest extent on that northwesterly side. We have also provided you updates. Let me see here, hold on. We have updated the letters. We did provide you the actual email correspondence from IF&W with regards to their satisfaction of the vernal pools and other items that they had on their previous letter. I'd just like to mention that these are 4 lots. Like I said, they're roughly 80,000 or just a little bit above that. They pitch from Middle Ridge Road to the land out behind, which is that olive-colored area, which is the marsh area on our drawing. The slope is roughly 3 to 5%, gentle slope down through there. Mr. Lopez has cleared out a substantial area up front, but well in the corresponding area that we designated to be cleared under the phosphorus export. I'll show you with my pointer here. This area here is roughly the line that he's cut, somewhere in there. So if you can see that kind of blue hatched area is what we have designated as a phosphorus control buffer, which is 100 feet. This area here is the forested wetland, and this here is the swamp marshland in the back. So there is quite a distance from the marsh area to where these lots would be developed, probably in the area of 400 feet, and probably 250 feet in areas from the edge of the forested wetlands. So with this development, we are well buffered of wetlands, and we know from letters and things that we have received that that is a major concern of the abutters. But that area in the crosshatch is a restriction. There can be no building behind that. So more than half of this total property is in protected areas that cannot be built on. That's more than any other single family would be doing in this same area. These lots would be served by common water and common septic. As I mentioned, these have been designed for 4-bedroom septic systems, and wells have been located up front along Middle Ridge Road. Each lot would have a private individual driveway coming onto Middle Ridge. We have looked at the site distance. That is a straight section of road. Site distance is excellent in both directions. We provided that evidence on the plan as well. So with that, I guess I'll turn it over to the board and the public, should they have any questions, and we'll listen to comments.
Just a clarification. Because it kind of says both in the narrative.
You're asking about the one outlot?
Yes, so this is a subdivision.
Yep.
This is slightly different.
We've included it because this is part of the parcel, and it has been split out. It is exempt, but it is part of the land, and we have just included it for that purpose. It is now designated as out parcel on this plan, but it is not subject to review, but it would be part of the survey that would be recorded.
Okay, so you're asking for approval of those 4 subdivision
Right,
lots?
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. All right, would members of the public like to address the board? Please go to the mic, and an address, please.
Hi, I'm Lauren Van Bibber. I work for Lakes Environmental Association at 230 Main Street. We just have a couple of things that came up that feel warrant additional maybe data. First, the wetland survey has very minimal information regarding the specifics of the wetland delineation criteria. A thorough wetland delineation survey would include the site photos, mapping, data form with field observations such as hydrology, soil types, and specific vegetative species present that have wetland indicators or not. And this feels relevant for this site because, as Jim mentioned, there are those salamander crossings which indicate we know of vernal pools in that area, not necessarily within the site project location, but we do know of a couple vernal pools within that kind of general vicinity.
What's within the general vicinity?
Vernal pools.
Vernal pool. You know of them, okay.
Yep, again, not necessarily in that project area within the radius, but in that area, hence the salamander crossings. So we would suggest re-requesting additional information for the scientist's credentials and field data supporting the wetland scientist's conclusion of the site. And then also in regard to the wetland, we would recommend that the buffers be marked with iron pins in the field to ensure that the eventual owners of those new lots understand where the buffers are to keep them preserved, because otherwise they could be, I don't know how much regulation there would be to ensure that those are maintained. The second recommendation we have is in regard to the Great Blue Heron Rookery. There was the additional map provided with the distance marked to the edge of the proposed development, but it only highlights the distance from that single tree, and I don't know what, I'm not sure what constituted identifying that single tree for the point of reference. But their habitat is spread throughout that area, and they do nest in different spots each year. I am not an expert on blue heron rookeries, but we do work with habitat spread frequently, and we would recommend overlaying the inland fisheries and wildlife blue heron rookery boundary over that aerial photo map to indicate and to ensure that the minimum distance away from the habitat is met to avoid that disturbance. Thank you.
Okay. You said overlay the MDIFW survey?
Yes, the inland fisheries and wildlife has a marked boundary of the blue heron rookery. It also, it's beginning with habitat as well as the other main state site that has that information.
Okay, thank you.
Can I address that?
I can address that.
Go ahead, but I do want to try and,
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean,
I'm hoping that
while
Mr.
it's fresh in my
Seymour's
mind, I'm getting
keeping
old, I
track of
forget.
all this.
Okay, so we hired a drone pilot to come in with high-resolution drone photography. We know that's the closest nest because we took a picture of it, okay? And I believe Mr. Seymour just said we have a letter from Fisheries and Wildlife saying that they're all set with this. And you know what, you guys walked out there, you saw the wetland line. We're 400 feet from where from the houses.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Okay, so Jim, I'm thinking on some of these, do we want to wait? Do you want to note them down and then answer them all at once?
I'll take notes and let's just do the whole public thing and we'll
I
respond.
mean, I guess if something's urgent, like pops into the head, that's fine too. I just don't want to bog down the public. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak concerning this subdivision? Please go to the mic. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Brogan Horton, now Howard. I reside at 73 Middle Ridge Road, which is the big white farmhouse kind of diagonal to the development. I don't need to go over a bunch of things that have kind of already been addressed. My biggest concern, which has been a concern my whole life actually living on these properties, I've lived in both the big house across the street and the farmhouse. We always ran out of water. Our houses always ran out of water. My aunt owned the little ranch that's directly across the street from the development. She always ran out of water. That recently changed hands to Jennifer Blanchard, which I know submitted her own letter and her own information. I won't double up on her, but I know she has to drill a whole new well. We recently had to drill a whole new well at the farm. We had to frack it to get down far enough. We're 380-ish feet down, and we're drawing sludge. My mom can't afford to drill any further to reach actual water. The sludge is all we're pulling off that far down. My biggest concern, which I haven't really heard addressed, is how can we put, 5 more wells in? I could be wrong on what the well design and system is. I just haven't been able to find that information that they're planning on doing. What if they put in 5 more wells? What if they have to frack all 5 wells? How are we going to be affected as surrounding properties, which already don't have water? I know, if you have to do that, how far down do they have to go? That is all just massive concern for us that live around this. I mean, that property was my family's property basically until Mr. Lopez purchased it, because we sold it to a neighbor to be hunting grounds, and that was his word, and before he even finished paying for it, it was under contract. So we didn't intend this to happen. My grandfather was a civil engineer here in this town. He knew better than to try and build out there. We don't mind some things happening, but just the idea of 5 more wells, 5 more systems of drawing off that land, 10 more families. Water usage seems like a really high amount for an area that's kind of already struggling to produce for the people surrounding it. I haven't really heard any kind of water or well study or information. Maybe I missed it. I could be wrong about it, but if that's the plan, 5 more fracked wells in a tiny area is going to leave long-lasting generational issues. We already have water issues there. That's going to add right to it. But that's my biggest concerns. I think a lot of it's already been addressed by other people. But yeah, we've been there. That property has been ours for as long as I've been alive, until recently. So it just seems like a big, big concern for us that are already kind of struggling to get water out of our faucets. Like I said, I could be wrong on the research that's done. I'd gladly love to see it if it was. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to go to the mic? Anybody else have any comments? Does anybody that's tuned in remotely on the Zoom have any comments? Okay. So in that case, I'd like to go to the board questions and comments, please. And just a reminder, this preliminary plan, we are not yet deliberating. So I'll start with, as usual, Ms. DiPietro. And make sure you speak up.
Okay. Well, for once, I don't have a lot of questions. Thank you for the nitrate information. It was most gratefully received, and I'm glad to see that your phosphorus boundary, your nitrate boundary, are both going to hit the woods. You're going to have a lot of nice uptake, and your woods are going to grow back faster. Other than that, I can provide more well information if you want it. I've been to the Maine Geological Survey and grabbed data for every well up and down the street, if that would be of any use to you.
We drilled some wells just down the street, so we kind of know what we're in for.
Yep. At least 300 feet down, and
Yeah, 300
the
feet's
deepest
not bad.
one's, the deepest one's about 680, so.
Yeah, that's a little deep.
Okay, Jessica?
I guess my biggest concern just goes back to the rural neighborhood district and the purpose, but I don't really know if I have a question for the applicant on that. And then my other question was about the wells, so just, the more information, just so we can put the board at ease, so we can put the local population at ease about the new wells that will potentially be drilled and what impact that could have on the neighbors.
Do you want to answer that question now, Mr. Seymour?
Yeah,
about
we
the
also
wells?
we also looked at the main geologic data as well. And to Catherine's point, we found that the well depths were 300 to 680 feet that were in quarter-mile proximity of this property. And it seemed like the average yield was between 2 and 4 gallons. At least that's what was posted on the site. Ideally, you'd like to be in the 3 to 4 gallon range. What they typically do in that case with a low yield is they build a larger reservoir in the well, so they go deeper, so that there's a bigger capacity of water in that well, so that as you use it, you have that kind of extra capacity. As you use it, it'll fill up slower, but you have additional capacity. That's typically how it's done. Obviously, there's a wetland out back, and so we know there's a permanent water table there, but that does not mean it necessarily interacts clearly with the geology and the rock formations out there. And it's very difficult to assess water usage. You could go 100 feet And the well yield from one well could be substantially different than another. It all depends on the seams within the ledge and how that groundwater flows within that ledge. However, it seems pretty uniform throughout the area that it's 2 to 4 gallons per minute yield, and as we've already noted, that the depth is between 300 and 600 feet depth. So we feel that while some of the wells may be a little bit deeper, I can't talk to fracking. I don't know what this particular well driller will utilize to obtain that yield, but it is a common practice that is done. And I do think that a lot of the wells that were experiencing difficulties last year, it was an extremely high drought situation last year, dug wells were unfortunately the victims of a lot of those problems. There's shallow, more surface wells. Obviously, with a drilled well, you're much deeper and you're into actual groundwater. You're in groundwater with a dug well, but you're more on a surface layer of return for that water. So,
Okay, and I did see in the plan that it's in the plan to be drilled
Yes,
wells.
yes.
So we will be providing drilled wells to the new homeowners. And can you guarantee, is it like a known thing that these new wells will not impact surrounding homeowner wells that already exist?
I think given the distance to the other wells on the property, the only well that may be impacted would be the one to the southeast. They're the closest proximity. But again, there's a substantial distance between those wells, and typically those drawdown, what we call drawdown yields, don't extend very far. But it all depends on how those seams in the ledge are working. I wouldn't feel that any of the properties across the street, the one to the northwest of us is an undeveloped lot, and clearly everything to the west is the swamp itself. So there's really only one property that I would have any concerns, and even with that, it would be a very low risk.
Just to tag on to what Jessica's concern, there were recommendations by the hydrogeologist concerning the wells, and they were pretty specific and seemed like they felt pretty strongly, so.
That they must be drilled?
I would expect that we would include that in,
Yeah, it definitely will be drilled wells.
assuming this is approved, I would expect we would include those as requirements.
Yeah, I think it said,
And
yeah,
they-
it said in the, like, drilled with a certain bedrock.
Yeah, and then they put extra casing in there as well, so there is no surface contamination. That's kind of a common practice by all well drillers these days.
These days, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Can Jessica pop in for a minute? Erica, sorry. Sorry about that.
Follow-on question.
Too many cars.
Yeah, that's okay. And this just has to do with my understanding of the building process. So at what point does the well go in? Like, if you can't drill a well that can yield 2 gallons of water, will you build a structure, or does the well get dug after the structure is already in place?
That's a very good question. You know, typically you build a house first, you don't drill the well first, and that's what we've done with this duplex. I mean, generally you'll find water, Jim alluded to it earlier, I've drilled wells where I've gone down 200 feet and had 50 gallons a minute, I've gone 40 feet to the other side of the lot line, and gone 500 feet and had 2 gallons a minute. So sometimes you get a dry well, you have to relocate. We've had pretty good luck using dowsers, believe it or not, with the copper rods. I never would have believed it worked. The first time I saw a guy doing it, I thought he was manipulating the copper rods. I'm like, give me those things. I went over there and I did it myself, and they crossed the same spot he did. We drilled. We had water at 250 feet. So there's something to it. I don't know what it is, but it works.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Jessica.
And then, not a question, but I just want to remind everyone that when we're talking about average home prices in Cumberland County includes Portland. So it's not my favorite measurement. Not a question, just a statement.
Yeah, point of clarification, I didn't say average, I said median house price.
In Cumberland County.
I said median, not median.
Okay,
All
so,
of the values
yeah,
may skew
but
that.
I think both points, I see the point of Jessica. I will say that, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna move on to Maggie.
I just had some questions about the landscaping plan and request for a waiver. This is page 21, is what I'm looking at. It notes that the site is currently in a wooded setting. After having been there, the site has been cleared. There's supposed to be a 15-foot buffer strip setback in the front. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that still exists if you actually measure it from the property line.
least that.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 20 feet.
Okay.
On the sideline, I think we mentioned on the site walk, on the sideline, that's to the southeast. That buffer is actually larger because he's still in the process of swapping that land with the abutter, so that lot 4 on this plan, most of that lot has not been cut yet. But they have met the side setbacks and the front setbacks for no cut. They did, as you were out there, you saw that there were clearings for driveways, for future driveways.
I guess I'm curious, the trees are already cut on the whole lot now, but in the future, and maybe I'm wrong, so I would think that it would be maybe less expensive to just clear the area that you're building in and not the whole lot.
I can tell you it's not.
Okay.
It's not. You have to have different equipment, it's not cheaper.
And I understand your question. It's a little bit of a challenge because people do want yard area. And the problem is that when you go in and you disturb soil for a foundation or a septic design or for a well or utilities, you disrupt all the root zone of the existing trees. They end up dying within a short period of time anyway, so it's almost better to leave it up to the individual lot owners to select if they wish to plant bushes or shrubs or trees.
No, and not only that, one of the challenges you have with a 100-foot wide lot and 25-foot setbacks is getting a building in there. You have a 50-foot building envelope. You heard the lady that was here earlier allude to that. I mean, that's one of the challenges you have when you go to those larger setbacks.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to talk all night about housing and density. I mean, that's kind of what we're here to do, but I am certainly, in general, pro-density in the sense that it requires less land, consumes less habitat, less land to then house people, and in general, and this, we're talking about the rural neighborhood, so this is a little bit different, but thinking about density close to town, close to services means folks can walk and connect with their neighbors, and I think creates a wonderful place to live. It's why I live downtown. So this is a tough one for me because it feels like we're in the rural neighborhood, we're consuming a lot of land for these units. And I guess that leads me to my next question, which a consideration for having, you've stated that the back of the lots are not buildable, but dedicating some of that to open space, it abuts protected property.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that, but I mean, just to address that point, these footprints are 1,000 square feet, okay? We could put 5,000 square foot houses there and put 10 bedrooms on each 80,000 square foot lot. Okay, so that's an alternative, and listen, I'm not.
That was my next question.
I'm not shooting from the hip when I say that, okay? I have, from the senior hydrologist in Maine, hydrogeologist, gave us the calculations, okay? That's not what we're here to do. We're here to try to address an issue that everybody acknowledges exists. That's a lack of housing that's affordable.
And that was my question. Can you just repeat what the alternative is?
Before we get to talking about density, let me just bring up something I need to bring up. And then we'll come back to, I think what Maggie's talking about is under a municipal standard called preservation of natural and historic features, but we'll come back to that as well as, there's a waiver been asked. Item K of the municipal standards, I'm going to read it. Lot size shall be calculated to include only net buildable land. The minimum lot size for any residential or commercial subdivision lot is 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit, with the following exceptions. So, the minimum lot size for lots covered by either central water system or central sewer system, but not by both, may be reduced to 30,000 square feet per dwelling unit. The minimum lot size for lots shared by both a central water system and a central sewer system may be reduced to 5,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So, lot size shall be calculated to include only net buildable land. That has been done. The wetlands and there's freshwater wetland there and forested wetland there, although I'm not sure that's shown on the map. It leaves about 45,000, on average 40 to 45,000 per lot. However, that has to be a single-family home. It has to be one dwelling unit per lot. So I think when we're talking density and we're bringing this stuff up, let's just be sure, and we'll come back to this, we're not gonna make a decision on it right now, but we need to stick to the standards. We may not like the standards, we may love the standards, we need to stick to the standards. So I want to get that out there because I don't know if Mr. Lopez or Mr. Seymour, there he is, have any comments on that observation.
So I'm a little bit lost on what the point was you were trying to make, if you could clarify.
The point I was trying to make is the lot size appears correct on there, and it appears to support single-family dwellings. That's the point I'm making.
And how are you arriving at that assertion?
Because the standard says 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit.
But the standard goes on to say that if you have central water and central sewer, you can go down to 5,000 square foot per dwelling unit.
I would argue that's not a central sewer or a central water system. It's shared.
Okay, and how are you making that?
The state standard for a central water system, well, we should go through this when we deliberate, but that's where I'm coming from, and there is a state definition for a centralized water system.
No, there's a definition for a centrally managed water system, not a central water system, which is the term that's in your ordinance, Madam Chair. And it says central sewer.
Then when we deliberate,
Huh?
we'll discuss that, but frankly,
Okay.
I don't see a lot of difference between a centrally managed and a central water system.
Okay, well, so I'll tell you what the difference is.
Which is
okay?
15,
I'll just tell you,
You go ahead and
I'll
have
tell you
your
the way
say.
this gets resolved, okay? Absent a definition in your ordinance, okay, case law directs you to look to a commonly accepted dictionary definition, okay? And I have one here that I'd be happy to read to you, okay? But first I'll answer Angie's question, okay? Angie asked, what are some of the alternatives, okay? We're here with the proposal we want, okay? Not the alternatives, okay? And Brenda, if I say anything that's not correct, and I don't expect you to pick up on everything I'm saying, but if I say anything that's not correct, please tell me, okay? Now, when I say these things to the board, understand that our proposal is to put affordable units on here, okay? So, to the chair's point, if we want to concede that we don't have central water and central sewer, which I don't, okay? I had a conversation with former board member Dan Harden, who put a centrally managed water system in over at the mountain, which services 17 units. To be candid, I was surprised at how little it costs. By the time we get done drilling 6 or 7 wells, we could put that in. So if we meet that standard, okay, as I said, I have from the hydrogeologist in the state of Maine, we asked how many bedrooms, and I'll submit this for the record, how many bedrooms can you put on an 80,000 square foot lot? You can put 10, because they don't look at net buildable land, they look at lot size. 80,000 square foot lot will hold 10 bedrooms. Again, it's not what we're looking to do here.
Right.
Okay? We could put 3 engineered septic systems that would accommodate 6,000 gallons of, this is more than just talking. This was something that I looked at before I did this, and I said, you know what? I don't want to go that route. You know why? Because I don't want to fight.
Right.
Sometimes you don't get what you want, right? When you try to do the right thing. So that's one option, to go that route. And I will tell you what the density is there. The density is 25 units that we can put based on the septic loading capacity that came from the senior hydrogeologist in the state of Maine. Okay, again, not what we're looking to do, okay? The other option that's available, and is in your ordinance, is mobile homes could go there, okay? A mobile home can go on 20,000 square feet with 100 feet of frontage, or I can do a mobile home with 75 feet of frontage, going down to 12,000 square feet of lot area. And Brenda, like I said, if I'm misspeaking, please let me know. And I could put four or five mobile homes in there, drill more wells, okay? That's not what we want, okay? So I think we meet the standard. In fact, we did the same thing down the street on Middle Ridge. We built 2 duplexes in 2020, same deal. Two septic tanks, 1 leach field, 1 well. Wasn't a problem then. So what's changed? So again, those are some of the options. And as I said earlier, okay, what you propose should never end up being better than what you get.
Right, we'll come back to that on this later on.
I think there's another option, and that is that, and this is not what's being proposed either, but that it remains forested and that our affordable housing and housing that is affordable, that missing middle housing, which is duplexes, is triplexes, maybe even small apartments, is built in growth management areas, concentrated towards services and walkability and things like that. So I think that's where my questions are coming from, and just, again, I'm pro-density, but our development patterns are gobbling up important habitat, important land and resources. So that's just the context with which this is. I'm kind of zooming out.
Okay,
there.
so,
But
yeah.
I'm done with my questions.
So I said this at the meeting when I talked about when you guys were changing the minimum lot size, okay? It was kind of a trick question for me to ask you why we were doing it, and I'm going to repeat what I said then, because I came from Massachusetts, and I saw it my whole life. Communities all the time had increasingly restrictive zoning. They went from 1 acre to 2 acre to 3 acres, or they went from 40,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet in that buildable land, okay? That's what happens. And that's why communities are getting LD 1829 forced upon them, because communities, it is. I mean, you're getting mandates from the state, because at the local level, and it's in that article that I asked you guys to read, okay, locally, you keep making things more and more restrictive, and you make it more difficult.
So I'm in total agreement. Anybody who's sat in a community development advisory committee meeting with me or been to various housing workshops at the select board, the planning board, I have been on the record pro-density. I'm, in general, supportive. I understand why the state has come down with 1829 and is sort of pushing towns to reform their zoning. I think that's important and productive work. The outcome that I imagine and I think is best for communities and people and everybody is places that are walkable, places that are livable, nice homes that people are excited about living in, places.
That's what we're doing. But not everybody wants to live in town.
Yeah, and you know what, Maggie?
So guys, you know what, I'm gonna have to redirect this conversation right now, because the topic at hand is not affordable housing.
Right.
I know we wanna make it affordable housing, the topic right now is not affordable housing. The topic is whether this application meets the standards, and the board needs to get their questions answered as to the evidence provided to us, which must support the standards.
Okay, so, then Madam Chair, I'm gonna shift directions here right now, okay? Let's take it off the table, okay, that it's duplexes, okay? This is 4 lots, we're showing building envelopes, that's what we'll consider. Once that's done, I will have my attorney, who's already looked into this, I'll have him submit a letter backing up our contention that we have central water and central sewer. Run that up to town council and see if they agree. And then we'll debate it then, okay? Because, I don't know if we're gonna get anywhere here.
I think that we haven't deliberated on that standard, and when we do, then obviously, it's your decision what you do next. So,
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's easy to acknowledge it, right? Acknowledge it just takes words. Addressing it takes action.
more, Maggie?
I'm all set.
Angie?
Yes. That was the question I had, was
Okay.
the alternatives.
Erica?
I've had my questions addressed.
Okay.
Can I follow up on something you made a comment?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to hear from LEA again, because, I read that there are no, I'm wondering, when you were speaking of vernal pools, are you talking about like state significant vernal pools, and where are they in location to the
Yes.
property at hand?
Yeah, in the, I had sent Jim a map of where the wildlife crossing was, and there was also a spot with the vernal pool as well. They are off, the vernal pool is off of Dugway Road that kind of backs up into it. So it's not, again, it's not necessarily within the project area, but the significant vernal pool that we know of is kind of back working your way towards the proposed project area, but not necessarily in it, but I don't know if there's other ones within that area.
And so your concern with regard to the vernal pool and the development is, if they're not overlapping and it's not on site, then what's the concern?
So I'm saying that because there is one that we know of there, I don't know if there's other ones that are in the project area. I don't know that information, but because there's one there, it's obviously good habitat. And so I don't know if it goes farther back. I don't know if it does overlap. Is that helpful?
Yes.
So what you're asking them to do, is there a significant cost to that as well?
So it was, the vernal pool survey goes along with a wetland delineation survey, and I know that was done, but what was submitted was just the half-page conclusion from that survey. Typically, there's a data form that goes along with that has a bunch of check marks to go through with that would identify those vernal pools. So it's it would be included in a wetland survey.
One more follow-up question. So were you part of the site walk? You haven't seen?
I was not part of the site walk, no, personally.
So may I address some of that as well?
Yeah, please do.
The wetland scientist that provided the letter did indicate that there were no observed areas of depressions where you would need water to stand to create these vernal pools. He conducted that survey I believe in the fall. The only time you can assess vernal pools is during the month of April and May. Primarily the frogs go first in April and the salamanders go in May. That's the only time of year that you can assess that, and the distinguish between a significant and just a general vernal pool is the number of species, egg masses in each pool. If you don't have the water, then you don't have the pool. So what the wetland person did is just basically said there was no areas that could store that kind of volume of water to support the pool. IF&W agreed in their email that I provided to you with that wetland. There could be wetlands off-site on other properties. Even if it was significant, it's a 250-foot ring, and within that 250-foot ring, you can only disturb 25% for development. If it's just a typical vernal pool under the significant level, It's treated like a wetland. There is new laws in effect now that they do want a 100-foot buffer completely around significant vernal pools, but the insignificant ones sort of get treated like a regular wetland at that point.
I'm familiar with
Oh,
both
okay,
sites
okay.
she's talking about, and
Yeah,
as
so
far as
again,
curious what evidence
we
there might
Sebago
be,
Tech,
but yeah.
yes, we at Sebago Tech did not perform that. That was done by another gentleman. However, we did have the support, and I would just like to point out that within your ordinance, there's not specifics about what is to be undertaken to distinguish wetland mapping. It only requires that the wetlands be mapped. It's a very general statement, and it does not get into specifics about what's required. So I think Mr. Murphy, who did that, complied with your ordinance. That may be something in the future, as you look at your ordinances, you may want to bolster if you do want these types of deeper investigations. However, as Mr. Lopez pointed out, there's a time consideration, because that means that if you want a vernal pool study on every development, we can only do it one time a year. So you basically have curbed all development to basically get all their mapping done in the spring, and then everything's put on hold the rest of the year. So that's why you go to that secondary of, if there's no obvious area for pooling to occur, that's why you rule it out. So it's not easy. And roughly the expenses, depending on the lot sizes, determines the expense.
Yeah.
Not cheap.
Yeah, I have some questions. First of all, in the letter between you and, so I actually heard what LEA said, and I understand what you're saying about mapping, but it's fairly common, I think, when wetlands are mapped, that it's done by either licensed site evaluator, which Mr. Murphy is not, or a wetland scientist, which is a very broad in general terms. There are wetland scientists that are certified through a society of wetland scientists. Maine does not have a certification for wetland scientists. However, Mr. Murphy states, and this is, in fact, the board had a training on this quite a while ago from a wetland scientist. Mr. Murphy states that, let me pull this letter up. Well, let me just go to another point. It says in your letter dated Tuesday, February 3rd, to Mr. Wood, that the wetlands were delineated. It references the letter from the hired specialist. No evidence of depressions on the proposed parcel, etc. He was privately contracted and provided the data we placed on the plans. Now, what we asked for earlier at the last meeting was additional wetlands analysis, mapping, and delineation if such exists. Wetlands mapping traditionally includes providing the data. Mr. Murphy quotes that he delineated the wetland for Mr. Lopez, and that he says wetland delineation is based on the Maine DEP and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers methodology. Well, the U.S. Army Corps' methodology, which is the 1987 version with a regional supplement for New England, when they are mapped or surveyed, whatever terminology you want to use, there is data. There is photos taken, which we have seen in other applications. There is actually a data sheet they're supposed to fill out, and they're supposed to mark the wetlands every 25 feet with an alphanumeric flag. on our site walk, they were flagged. I didn't see, I don't think it was every 25 feet, and I don't think they were alphanumeric flags. I'm wondering where the data is that's been referred to here. And I'm also wondering, I'm confused actually a little bit by Mr. Murphy's letter, because it's not clear to me if he actually went out and surveyed the wetlands as it appears, it says, as Mr. Seymour has mentioned, or whether he went out to the area which already has a wetland boundary on it, including actually that lot is part of the shoreland zone, and whether that was just confirmed. So if he truly walked the property and surveyed and mapped that out, if it was done per the regs that he references, there would be data somewhere.
So,
And
Madam
there would
Chair,
at least be photos.
so just so I'm clear, are you questioning whether he fabricated that report or that he didn't go and do the flags? I can tell you, I met him there and when he was doing the flagging. I watched him do it. I walked part of it with him. Okay? He put those flags in. Now, you also saw, because you made the comment about the 25 feet when we were out there, we were 600 feet back from the road. This isn't a situation where these wetlands are lapping right up against the house.
Oh, I know that.
Okay. I'm not sure why you want to dig so deep into this when you know that we were 600 feet from the road.
My concern is we told we've told the state that there's data backing that up. And for as I can see, there's no data. There is, and so my question there is exactly where did the line on the engineering plan come from? Because Mr. Seymour states in his letter to the state that he provided the data we placed on the plan, so I need to understand that,
Yes,
please.
that data was provided to us by the surveyor, Matthew Burke, who did the boundary survey. While he was there, my understanding is that he identified the flags that were set by Mr. Murphy.
Wetland guy puts the flags in, we send the surveyor back out, he locates the flags, gives that information to Sebago Technics, they put it on the plan. That's the data they're referencing.
And can I just ask what this document that is stamped with the state of Maine and signed that says hydrogeologic evaluation for proposed Middle Ridge Road
That's
subdivision?
the hydrogeologist that
the septic
provided
systems.
evidence as to whether the land was suitable for the wells and the land and the septic
Okay.
placement would not cause issues with runoff onto neighboring properties. That has nothing to do with the wetlands.
And they stated that the buildings would be 400 feet from the protected wetlands, right? Is that approximately?
Yeah,
Approximately, yes.
roughly,
So-
some more.
So just be clear, I mean, we were provided that information from Matthew Burke, who did the boundary survey. While he was doing the boundary survey, he did pick up the flag that was set by Mr. Murphy. That's put on a series of points, that's provided to us, we put this together, we do the
Well-
topography and everything else.
My only comment is that what's been submitted to this board says that these wetlands were mapped according to certain regulations. It doesn't appear they were unless, and it's clear to me from looking at the shoreland zone that, because that land is in the shoreland zone, that it seems that quite a bit of distance is between the wetlands and the development. But if they were mapped per those regulations, there would be photos, which we have gotten in other applications, and there would either be a log or a summary. And it's very minor what we've been given in terms of explanations.
And again, I'm not going to argue with what you've been given before, because I think my firm has been the one that's given you that information. However, it's very vague as to what is actually required.
It says wetland mapping, and wetland mapping is done versus a certain regulation. We all, come on.
Madam
That's
Chair.
what this fellow has signed himself as a wetland scientist. A wetland scientist, a qualified wetland scientist is going to use the Army Corps of Engineer manual and the New England edition. So the record seems to me that if really this wetland boundary was set by the surveyor, who's a licensed surveyor, or a site evaluator, and that's what was mapped onto there, then we need to be clear, and that Mr. Murphy, because honestly, if the procedure was followed, it's quite possible that Mr. Murphy could find, especially if it's being flagged every 25 feet, could find a difference in what the surveyor put down based on aerial maps and data in the data that's held by DEP and the state, in other parts of the state, and by the federal government, I guess the best way to say it nationally. It's possible it would be different. Now, that being said, it's a long way away from those where the disturbance is, but I am concerned in the way this is presented to the board, as if it was mapped per a certain procedure.
Okay,
Mr.
what you
Lopez.
just said is totally wrong, okay? The wetland scientist, and when I submitted his qualifications, I think he's abundantly qualified, okay? He does the flags. Once the flags are in place, we send a surveyor out with a GPS. He picks up the flags, they're downloaded on his system, and they're given to Jim. The surveyor doesn't mark the wetlands. He picks up the wetland flags that have been marked. The same way it's done for every project that we've done. Now, Madam Chair, you just made a comment that said sometimes we get pitches, okay? How are we supposed to know what sometimes, when that sometimes are? Okay, there's got to be some measure of consistency here.
If you go-
Well, excuse me, I let you talk. Can you let me finish?
I answered the question. I said if you go to the regulations by the Army Corps of Engineer, you do have it asks for pictures, it asks for a log.
Right, but by your own admission, you don't always get it. So how is an applicant supposed to know? I've been before this board for over 24 applications. We very rarely, unless it's a sensitive area, have submitted photos and all of that stuff. The wetland delineation has been fine all the time. Now you're changing the rules. I feel like I'm in a chess game. I'm waiting for you to make your next move so I can counter it. Okay? And that's just a ridiculous way to do business.
Can I just make a comment on that? I think I'm fairly new to this board and haven't had a lot of your projects come before us. I think there has been public concern about the impact to these wetlands, and that matters. I said at the last meeting, we are accountable to the public. That's why this process exists. That's why
Okay.
we serve on this board. And
Maggie, one thing you gotta learn, okay, with all due respect, okay, is that every application, whether it's a quarry or a 4-lot subdivision, you're gonna hear about water, wetlands, and wildlife, okay? That's very consistent here,
yeah, I
okay?
think it's what folks in the community care about, right?
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's.
I can read you some Facebook posts to tell you what they really care about, okay, if you want, but that's not
Yeah.
gonna get us anywhere.
Guys, we're getting off. Okay, so Maggie made a reasonable statement. Wetland is a major concern brought up by abutters. It also says there's data that supports the flagging. As far as I can tell, we haven't seen the data.
The data is from what he gets, what Jim gets from the survey, that's the data that's referred to.
Well, if, we're gonna go around in circles. If this wetland scientist mapped the wetlands, and he did it according to what he says in his own letter, then he would have he says he followed the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers required guidelines for wetland mapping, which also has a New England addendum to it. That requires data, not just walking the lot, okay? That's my point, and that is inaccurate, so far as I can tell, unless Mr. Seymour or somebody can go back to Mr. Murphy and actually get the data that he made a determination on the actual mapping. Because it's not just a matter of only walking the property. It's recording what you see and it's taking photos. And that's in the regs. I'm not making that up. Mr. Seymour, and I'll move on now.
Yep, thank you. I just want to point out, one of the items you mentioned was, and I did check with our wetland specialist, and it's not a common practice to map every 25 feet. Typically, they map for change of direction in the wetland, and they try to make it as visible from flag to flag. Secondly, the only one, to your point, that can answer the question about the report is Mr. Murphy. He's the one that conducted that. He would have to be the one to report back. But I would like to, again, go back to my first point, which is, unfortunately, in your ordinance, it just says mapping wetlands. It does not refer to IF&W, it does not refer to New England wetlands practices. I would, if I were the board in this case, I would defer to IF&W and say, are you satisfactory with this information? Because that is one of the letters that we are required, and they do look at these things. And so if I were the board, I'd refer back to that, and I guess that's where we'll land, other than Mr. Murphy's the only one that can answer your other questions.
Well, in my observations at the site, the wetlands were flagged. I would say more flags would be very helpful to know exactly where those boundaries are. They were fairly far apart. And now Maggie was on the site, and so was Kathy. So if they disagree, they can speak up.
It wasn't every 25 feet.
No, I'm not even sure it was every 50 feet. But regardless of that, MDIFW has been told there's data supporting the delineation. And I do wonder if they should get another letter, which, because honestly, there isn't data. There's a 2-paragraph letter. So that's my comment, and I'm just gonna drop it now. If that letter didn't refer to data, would they come to the same conclusion, or would they ask for more? Granted, wetlands are pretty far away.
400 feet.
Yeah. I think we need to be, I think when this board looks at evidence, they need to be looking at, when something is put before us, especially when it gets approval from the state, you should expect any board member to look at that carefully and decide if the evidence is there, versus a statement or a couple of statements. That's our job.
You know what we really expect, especially when we come back here time and time again, is some consistency. And you can't say sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. It doesn't work.
Again, I'm pointing to the data and what the wetland scientist himself said he followed. Bottom line. So let me get back to where I was. Now that we've done that. In his letter, Mr. Wood recommended in spite of his conclusions, recommended consultation with the Maine Natural Areas Program and MDDEP. I'm just wondering if that consultation,
Well,
if you've taken him up on that request.
we're not required. We have not triggered anything with MDEP, and I did have this conversation with him, so he acknowledged that that's a standard response that he puts in all his letters, regardless of the situation. Basically, it's a CYA. So we did not trigger anything with DEP, therefore we're not required to consult with DEP. As far as Maine Heritage Program, other than the letters that we have submitted, we have not reached out to Maine Heritage.
Okay. Kathy didn't say anything, so I'm assuming this is correct, but, so this lies in the Long Lake watershed and not the Highland Lake watershed?
Correct.
Yes.
Who's going to be responsible for checking that the erosion control measures are taken properly? We normally have some sort of, says the contractor.
Yes, and I believe it's between the contractor and Brenda.
Is there going to be a log of some sort?
Yes, the new.
Who's responsible for erosion control? It would be Brenda in this case, unless, the board puts a condition.
So Ms. Day is supposed to go out and check that it's been done properly?
Correct. Yeah, and it should be done by a certified contractor with erosion control certification.
Okay.
And that could be a note that we could add to the plan if the board so chooses.
Um,
I would like just to address one other point that was earlier, and before we forget it.
Sure.
We have shown iron pins to be set for all the buffers.
Okay.
So if that was a question from LEA, and I just wanted to make that point, that we have shown a series of pins across this area here, which is the beginning of the restricted area. That's 100 feet from the edge of the current mapped wetlands. So there's an adequate buffer. No one can go beyond that with any disturbance or construction.
Okay. The shoreline zone does cross into that area. There's actually quite a large wetland, as you know, wetland swamp there. And although there's forested wetland on that land, there's, maybe I missed it, but it's not clear to me where the freshwater wetland ends and the forested wetland starts.
That is.
And reason I ask that is because looking at that, at the shoreline zone map, it looks like the wetland there, which then has the ring for limited commercial district, is in the size of 25 to 30 acres, which makes it a freshwater wetland.
Yes. So, again, going back, this is the area that's been identified. This olive area is identified as the freshwater wetland area.
Okay.
And the darker green is the forested.
Okay.
Or upland wetland, if you want to call it that.
Okay, and so with the final subdivision plan, assuming we get there, then that will need, the shoreland zone should be overlaid on that as per the application requirements in the beginning of the, yeah.
Is that actually mapped on the map, the shoreline zone?
The application requirements in the very beginning,
Yeah.
minus the subdivision requirements, require that the shoreline zone is shown.
Yep, if it's so mapped, we will show that.
Yes, I think that would be very helpful because I sense that the shoreline zone map, which anybody can go on the GIS system and look it up, I suspect that maybe that forested wetland isn't shown on the shoreline zoning map, so I don't know. But we should in any case have that overlaid,
Yeah, we will do that.
okay? And again, it's in the GIS system. What,
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's not mapped in the GIS for shoreline zone. At least what we had.
this is from the GIS system. And you can look at the shoreland zoning maps and see it. It's obvious if you go to the shoreland zoning maps.
I was only going to what she told me.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong whatever.
Yeah,
It was 14.8, but it was 14.8.
this comes right off GIS.
Yeah, and I do think
The
that'll
board-
match up.
yeah,
I
there you
think that'll
go.
match up.
Erica just pulled it up.
Yeah, I think it'll match up very closely to what we have in Olive. If anything, it may actually be, that line may be a little bit,
Yep.
or Olive may be a little bit more than what the shoreline shows, but.
Well, I'm kind of just looking over my notes here for any further questions. Do Maggie or Kathy want to relay any observations of the site walk to the rest of the board?
I guess I just want to make it clear that the land, I've noted this earlier, but is cleared, and there's an old forestry road that was reused for, to get to the back corner of the lot, so there is kind of an opening.
Opening in the buffer.
Yeah.
But the tree stand is thick and
It was very
Pretty solid.
snowy.
Say again?
It was very snowy.
Very wet for one
wow.
individual, too.
Yeah.
yes, yes, you found a
So
wetland.
one of the questions I have is, that area that was cut, which is cut through the buffer, which I understood was an old road or the path had been cut before, but it is in, and I think it was stated during the sidewalk, I believe it was stated that, and I don't know if this is the area.
Yes, that is the area, yes.
But we walked beyond here, and over to in here, where you fell into
Soup.
the freshwater well.
Yes.
Freshwater wetland.
Okay. And it was stated at that time that this went essentially all the way through the lot, which would mean it's also within the freshwater wetland. So I guess I have a question for, I don't know if it's for you or Brenda. So Brenda, do you give a permit for cutting in a freshwater wetland, or no? DEP would give that
Well,
permit.
Not just under, if it's within 4,300 square feet, they don't need a permit.
Most practices come from Department of Conservation, and then they're responsible for acquiring necessary.
So my follow-up question is, given that that's been cut clear through, and you're showing so the buffer you're showing on the map, is that totally accurate based on the cut? Because the cut goes further than what's shown there.
The cut actually goes further back. This is what we have calculated for available to disturb in lawn. That cut line is actually back up in here.
No, I mean, so what I'm asking is, this buffer here, does this buffer, because this is cut through here, this buffer here, part of it's been cut already, correct?
Part of it, yes, for the road clearing.
So my question is,
Under DEP practices, I think I know where you're going. Under DEP practice, as long as it's not stumped.
no, I understand, it will
Okay.
grow back. My question is, did your phosphorus calculations take into account the fact that there's currently no buffer there, or is the fact that, I mean, there's stumps there, and I'm sure there's grass and those sorts, and other plants. My real question is, did the phosphorus calculation assume that the buffer went all the way across, or did it take into account the fact that the buffer's been cut into? Because, and I'm obviously not an engineer, but I believe the path is somewhere right in here, right?
Right.
So a portion of this has already been cut, right?
Correct, yep.
So,
So what would happen in that circumstance is, even though it's been cut, that land is not lawn, it is not impervious cover, so it would not generate any additional phosphorus. The fact that we're allowing it to revert back to woodland would be satisfactory under DEP conditions to be counted either as a meadow or as a wooded buffer. So, under either circumstances, the DEP would look at that, as long as you didn't stump that and you allow it to revert back. In some cases, they prefer that because lower vegetation, as it's coming up, is thicker and does a better job of phosphorus uptake through the roots than big, mature trees.
okay. So you would argue then that replanting in that area to make the buffer actually match what's on that map is
Excessive.
unnecessary?
It's excessive, and to tell you the truth, we've had circumstances where people have got overzealous, oftentimes with forestry practices, and DEP has come out, and over again, it's been proven that the natural fauna coming back, you open up sunlight in these dense areas, and those trees take off like wildfire when there's roots, so.
Just out of curiosity, how long ago was it cut? A year, 2?
No, this past fall.
Yeah.
So it's a fresh cut, so,
Yeah.
so it hasn't had a chance to even revert back, but it will, this spring, you will see.
Well, it'll sprout or
Yeah.
regenerate depending on what
Right,
you've got
blackberries
there,
are
so-
usually the first things that come up, and then the younger deciduous and the pines and everything. It's a revolution of the forest, but it happens relatively quick.
We have good natural regeneration here.
Yeah, and we keep saying that it was cut, it was an existing road that went down through there where we were standing, assuming that it had all been cut. There might have been some brush and stuff that was on there, but there was nothing, of any substance that was cut.
Okay.
And we did not cut into the wetlands, okay? The wetlands flags were downgrading from where we were. And point of clarification, where he stepped was not a freshwater wetland, it was a skidded trail that always hold water.
I think we were in that, we were pretty close to that freshwater
Yeah.
wetland, but I don't know if we were in.
We were in it, because we
pretty
went
close.
almost to we pointed to where the lot line
Yeah,
was.
yeah, I think
So
the flags
we
were
were in
pretty,
it.
the flags were there.
So just a point of confusion here, the hydrogeologic survey references 13 acres, not 9.6?
3 acres were deeded out to an abutter.
Yeah, he may have had the original deed
He
for.
had the original plan.
The original plan, because this parcel was
Right.
sold to an abutter, so he may have included that.
He may have
His study
included
is-
that.
His study is here, he's not on that parcel. And that acreage is just a statement of the land, it has no bearing on his study, and we can get that modified if the board chooses. Because his study was very concise to the lots.
Right, no, this study was impressive. I think I'm done. Thank goodness.
So one other outstanding question was Maggie's, which I'll come back to again, was the reason we asked for the waiver is because of the fact that 3/5 of this lot is going to remain wooded. And it's being put into restrictive buffers, and if Mr. Lopez so chooses, maybe the possibility of some kind of conservation agreement with trails or something like that, or just in general in conservation. So we feel like we've done our due diligence as to protect the trees and the wildlife. And as such, you've got a 15-foot buffer. I don't know what else we would do with landscaping at this point.
I guess my comments were just towards aesthetics. I think that's often what folks are reacting to, and it's nice to have trees, or like mature trees around your home, so, but it's already cut, so, it's all good. And I appreciate that, the back half is staying forested, and I appreciate that folks want lawns and open space too around their homes, so.
Yeah, I have one more. One of the things the board asked for was an answer to each of items in the municipal standards T1 through 4. And I think maybe you can just look at that and
do that.
maybe talk through it, what was basically said is it was not applicable because there's not a river or brook. However, this speaks to 4 different items. So one is where a subdivision is traversed by a water course, drainage way, or future sewer line, or that we determine that surface water drainage to be created by the subdivision must be controlled for the protection of the owners and abutting owners. There must be an easement for drainage, so forth and so on. I'm not so much referring to that one, unless the board thinks, Kathy certainly, who, this is her area of expertise, is happy with the drainage that's been presented. I'm assuming, number 2, provide a statement from an engineer that the proposed subdivision will not create erosion, damage, or runoff problems either in the subdivision or adjacent properties. I'm assuming that, Mr. Seymour, you're putting your name on that.
Yes, we have provided you an erosion control plan as well as phosphorus calculations and phosphorus management plan, which directly address that condition.
Okay, and then there's an item 3 about topsoil. Could that be addressed by you or Royce?
Yeah, we haven't removed topsoil. That's not part of the conditions listed here. Excavations, parking areas.
So you haven't,
Yeah, strip it. So essentially, what that I think gets to is the fact that they
shouldn't be
haven't,
removed
they
from the
haven't stripped
site.
the land for the use of topsoil or removal of the topsoil for sale or anything else. They're just basically recycling that topsoil, if I understand correctly, to
Is that-
degrade the lot.
Okay. So basically, you're not removing topsoil and trucking it away, basically.
They're just moving what's necessary for the improvements that are there and trying to reutilize as much as possible.
And then it says the applicant must take measures to correct and prevent soil erosion in the proposed subdivision as detailed in any required sedimentation and erosion plan. So, Ms. Day, I'm assuming that they have a erosion control plan. You're the person that inspects that. All right, so that answers that question. Okay, thank you.
And that is stamped by myself.
Kathy?
Right, and there's still, of course, on top of that, the Maine construction
Correct.
general permit, which we've discussed on
Yep. And
multiple occasions.
Yeah, and I think we're getting used to putting a general note on the plan that addresses that, so.
I know.
All right, so, oh, sorry, one last one. You have a land swapping process, or, I know that's not the technical term.
Essentially is.
That swap is required to meet the frontage requirements, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but that has not been concluded
We're
yet.
getting close. The max back required in the appraisal, which is in process and it's supposed to be done. I mean, we're swapping
Right,
same amount of square
right.
footage, so it shouldn't be an issue. I think it's a money grab by the lender to make them pay for appraisal.
Okay, that would have to be a condition of approval
Yeah,
since it's not set
absolutely.
yet.
It doesn't meet the standard otherwise.
The setback from the DEP property or the buffer from it, I think you were quoted at 20 feet, and that's the lot, I guess, at the top of the map there, and that abuts.
Yeah, that's not part of the subdivision.
But is a buffer required on your side?
I get what you're
On
saying,
the,
yeah, so there
on
would
the
have to
other,
be
I
a,
know there's a 15-foot perimeter buffer we require. Does DEP require an additional buffer?
no.
Okay. But you said it was going to be 20 feet, if I recall.
I think it's set at 20 feet, the requirement is 15 by your ordinance.
Okay, so there's no requirement by DEP?
No.
All right.
The only restriction for DEP would be the length of the driveway could not be more than 150 feet.
And then I noticed the HHE forms are not yet approved. When does that happen?
That would typically happen, I understand, at building permit process.
Yes, I mean, we're not even required to give them, well, if it's submit a test that they
Well, subdivision asks for them.
And they've been provided, they just are not typically
Right.
executed until such time as the building's permitted.
Okay, is the board ready to deliberate?
Mr. Chair, did you actually close the public hearing?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the board.
Well, please come to the mic.
Sorry, I just had a quick question. The well information that you've pulled up and down the road, I don't know how that works, so I could be leading into nothing. Does that show wells that have been I don't know the technical term for it, redug to go deeper? The builds up the road from us, there's quite a few of them that have had to dig even deeper out of Mr. Lopez's other builds. I didn't know if that was, does it only show you like the initial drill, or does it show you when somebody has to go back and re-drill, is my question. I don't know where any of that information comes from, so it's new to me.
Where it comes from is, I'm getting it from the.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah,
Maine
I think we're getting
Geological
the same
Survey,
thing. What happens is when there's a new well drilled,
Well,
the
yes.
well drillers have to provide that information to the state with
Yes.
the depth and the yield that they've acquired from that well, and that's
And the
reported.
geolocation points.
Exactly. So that is updated data as long as the well drillers are being forthright.
Yeah, I picked up your well that you had drilled in
Yeah.
January.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak before we close the public hearing?
And I want to,
Name and address, please.
Jason Fuller, 56 Holden Hills. I just think there's a couple things to keep in mind with this project. So, I live up the road from the Kimball Road project that the people were just dealing with. So when they were doing that project, I had several neighbors come up to me that had concerns about it being in a field and the wildlife and all these different things. So I think it's important to recognize when we look at a project that finding the perfect location works in a perfect world, which we don't live in. So, for example, with that field, I thought the field was great. I think everybody did, and I think people really grasped onto the fact that they were used to driving by that every day, and they didn't want to see houses sitting in that field, which I can certainly understand. But if it's not wells or wetlands or fields or woods that are being cut down, or it's a rural area where housing is going, or it's in town and people don't want more congestion in town, the point of what I'm trying to make is that it's very difficult to find the very perfect location for all these projects. So I'm a trades guy, working man, and I have 4 employees, and one of them lives in town. The rest of them don't because they can't find places that they can afford to live in town. So either rents are too high or homes are too high. When I moved here in 2014, my house was a little less than half of what they're going for now. We work in lots of new construction homes, and even the typical ranch now, even though the median home prices in Cumberland, you're right, Portland, is drastically more expensive. But the homes that I work in, a simple 3-bedroom ranch, 2-bath, they're usually going anywhere from $360,000 to $500,000 in Bridgton. So for the local people, not only is a home payment out of reach for them, but also the down payment. So at the time when they built those homes on Kimball Road, those are the least expensive homes on the market. And now these are going to be even less than that to give some of those working people, the locals, places that they can live. And I think that's so important because you have a lot of people getting now pushed out of town, just with people I know, employees of mine, that can't afford to be here anymore because of what's going on. So if we continue to look at try to find the absolute perfect location, which would be great, that's just not quite the world that we live in. And quick question for Brenda. So is it true that he could put more mobile homes than he could duplexes? Is that?
He had, the restrictions, the requirements were less, yes.
The requirements are less. So like, I drive down that road every day. People need places to live. They want to live in mobile homes. That's great. I think that sounds like a worse alternative to, I've seen mobile homes that go for similar prices, but it sounds like a better alternative to have a duplex there than it would be that you have even more homes, more wells, to have something like that. So that was just concerning when I heard it, but I guess it wasn't so much of a question that I had or anything like that, but more of a statement, is just things to keep in mind when we're looking at projects like this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Of course, the board's requirement is to adhere to the standards. Did we close the hearing? No.
No, you didn't yet. Madam Chair, I just want to make sure, before you do, I want to make sure I preserve my right to comment afterwards, especially when you start deliberating the definition of a shared well versus central water.
I think you need to give us your definition now, because
okay.
it can't be going back and forth.
Okay,
during
so let me
deliberations.
just ask you, you claim that these are shared well, shared well and shared septic, how are you arriving at that definition when it's not in your ordinance? There's no shared well definition in your ordinance.
I've gone and looked at various definitions.
Okay, so you're conceding that it's not in your ordinance.
So, well, as you said yourself, we're pointed to the definitions if they're not there. There's a difference between shared septic, which is what this is, it's a septic system, and a sewer. It's not a sewer. Kathy, go ahead.
The state does have a definition for centrally managed, what they call centrally managed water systems.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's under 30-A MRS 46, oh, jeez, I need my glasses, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, Captain,
Yeah.
but my point is, your ordinance doesn't reference a centrally managed water system. The terminology in your ordinance says central water system, okay? So I'll provide you, to the chair's point, I'll provide you with the Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of central water. A water supply that collects and distributes potable water to multiple residential properties from a single centralized source. My claim is the single centralized source, just like it was down the street on Middle Ridge, okay, and the other duplexes that we built, is that well. The infrastructure that comes out of that well is 2 pumps and pipes that go to 2 different residential dwelling units. Okay, so that's my definition there. Now, your ordinance also references central sewer system, not central sewage, central sewer.
Right.
And I think we can agree that sewer and sewage are 2 different things. Sewer is the physical pipe.
Septic
Sewage
and
is what's in the pipe.
Oh, septic and sewer are different.
Your ordinance references a central sewer system.
Sewers, yeah.
Okay, which is not defined there, but I can share with you the definition from the previous subdivision ordinance of central sewage system. A wastewater disposal system that receives wastewater from 2 or more dwelling units. A centralized system may have a private sewer collection system flowing into a larger septic tank, or it may have building drains flowing into individual smaller tanks. The wastewater, after receiving primary treatment in a septic tank or tanks, may be pumped or gravity fed to a single subsurface disposal field or several fields on common land area. That comes from the town of Bridgton in the prior subdivision ordinance. So I think if you go to the dictionary definition, and I'm defining terms that are in your ordinance. I'm not assigning terms like the chair is, saying, well, it's not central, it's shared. Okay, I'm taking terms from your ordinance, and I'm giving you the commonly accepted dictionary definition of those terms.
One of the common.
And I just want to say, this is the town of Bridgton's ordinance. This is not, we did not come up with this. Like,
No.
this is the this is the communities. I just want to,
Yeah, I'm not arguing that point, Maggie.
I'm just clarifying, because you're saying that it's ours, and I just want to make sure
Correct.
It's understood.
It's the town of Bridgton, but I am referencing actual terms
Yeah, yeah,
in your ordinance. I'm not
yes.
making up terms or assigning terms like the chair is to say it's not central, it's
Yeah.
shared.
Well, we're going to discuss that in a minute.
Okay.
So, any more comments? I move we close the public hearing. Moved by Ms. Brazini, seconded by Ms. Cook. Okay,
Should we vote?
so,
Deb?
oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. So, let's go to the ordinance. To the statutory review criteria, section V6.6. Pollution. The proposed subdivision will not result in undue water or air pollution. In making this determination, the planning board must consider, and then it gives 5 requirements, which I will not read out. Any discussion on that? The applicant has provided evidence that you wouldn't expect water pollution from the septics, and these are homes, not any kind of something else. There's no floodplains. The HHE forms, and I think the hydrogeologic survey indicate waste disposal, the nature of the soils and subsoils can adequately support waste disposal. It's not a heavily sloped land. There's no streams on the property. I believe applicable state and local health and water source regulations have been followed. Okay, any comments on any of that? Sufficient water?
We don't know yet.
No, what we do have is a hydrogeology report that indicates there should be sufficient water. And I don't know how you could,
Bedrock wells, you can't tell
yeah,
till you drill them.
so, what happens out of curiosity if there isn't sufficient water? They just can't, that's when, Mr.
question.
Lopez, if you wouldn't mind answering that question, or the engineer.
I don't
What
know.
happens if the wells are drilled after the home is built and there isn't sufficient water?
You drill another well.
Okay,
I do think you just keep investigating to see if you can find a drilled well. If not, then I believe the ultimate worst-case scenario would be the lot would be uninhabitable.
okay. So that's a risk of the applicant. Municipal water supplies not being used, erosion. I think in the, I don't know if it's a condition or if it's just in the findings that the code enforcement officer will inspect to assure that the erosion control plan's been followed.
I think that's with every applicant.
Right.
I mean, that's with every applicant. I mean,
Okay, so
it's not really a condition.
then I'll put it as in the findings.
Yeah, and each contractor has to be, as I mentioned before, certified.
Traffic, any comments on traffic? Again, we should be relying on the evidence provided in the application. Sewage disposal. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna, I mean, the hydrogeologic survey would indicate that the septics will provide for adequate sewage disposal. Municipal solid waste. aesthetic, cultural, and natural values. The proposed subdivision will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area, aesthetics, historic sites, wildlife habitat, significant wildlife habitat identified by MDIFW, or the town or rarely placeable natural areas or any public rights for physical or visual access to the shoreline. Any comments there? I do have one comment, is MDI, not MDI, the natural areas protection. Did recommend the area be surveyed for the world pogonia. Yeah, small world pogonia. Now, I've gone back and looked at prior letters, and normally what they say is there's nothing there that's in their current surveys, but if you, the words are, if you, like May survey, something like that, we'd like the results. This was a little different. DEP, or
MDIFW.
yeah, they actually recommended the survey. So that's a little different than what I've seen in other things. So my question to the board is, it's a recommendation from the Natural Areas whatever program. Where do you come out on that? Obviously, if that were to be done, the application would have to be tabled until later in the spring.
I don't think we need to do that.
Any comments from anybody?
So what happens if we don't require it?
Nothing, it just means that we're abdicating our, call it, ability to ask the applicant to do that, because it is a recommendation of a state agency. So, there's no requirement for the applicant to do that by the state agency, and the item H is fairly broad in what it covers. In other words, it covers a lot. So, I'm not seeing the board jump on this.
Sure.
If, go ahead.
Looking at that report too, it also points out that typical locations for those plants, but not totally isolated, are typically in vernal or ephemeral runoff courses, leaf piles, terraces or benches and base of slope areas, small canopy openings, fern patches. I think based on what we observed out there, what I observed prior to the snow coming out there, that habitat would be the lower sections of the property.
Would be where the wetlands are.
Where the
and where
wetlands
the
are,
buffer
correct,
is.
right. So I think the probability of disturbing them, I can't say with 100% certainty, would be more prone in those wetland areas.
Okay. Any comments from the board? If not, I'm gonna move on. You- Comprehensive plan. Financial and technical capacity. Surface waters, outstanding river segments. Whenever situated within 250 feet of any wetland, great pond, or river, the proposed subdivision will not adversely affect the quality of that body of water. When lots in the subdivision have frontage on an outstanding river segment, it does not. To avoid circumventing the intent of this, whenever a subdivision adjoins a shoreline strip narrower than 250 feet, which is not allowed, the proposed subdivision must be reviewed as if lot lines extended to the shore. I think there is no shore, but I think the lot lines certainly extend it well into the wetland. Groundwater, any questions on that? How far again are you from the freshwater wetland? The development part.
The development part, this is 100 feet, I'm going to guess we're almost 200 feet from the freshwater boundary, approximately.
Okay.
From the wooded freshwater wetlands, not from the forested wetland, not from the freshwater. From the freshwater would be another easy 150 to 200
Yeah, we're
feet,
400 feet.
almost 400 feet.
So 200 feet to the forested, 400 feet to the freshwater. Okay, groundwater. Floodplains. Floodplain, engineers stated that none of the properties in the floodplain. Freshwater wetlands. All freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision have been identified in a map submitted as part of the application regardless of the size of these wetlands. The mapping of freshwater wetlands may be done with the help of the local soils and water conservation district. My only comment here is that I don't think I can say these wetlands were mapped according to what the wetland scientist says they were. My stance is that based on where the shoreland zone is and based upon our site walk, that wetlands, that the freshwater wetlands are quite a ways away from the development. Right. But I do not think that is proven in the summary of the wetland mapping, not per the regs. Farmland? River, stream, or brook? Stormwater? Spaghetti lots? It's not on a river, stream, or brook or great pond. Lake phosphorus concentration? I think here we just will state that the area that's been cut will be allowed to grow back up as part of the not to be cut buffer. Okay? Impact on adjoining municipality, land subject to liquidation harvesting. I have a hard time understanding this standard, I have to admit. Timber on this parcel being subdivided has not been harvested in violation of the rules adopted pursuant to as a state. And then it says we have to determine that 5 years have elapsed. I can't see any evidence that would tell us something's been violated. So, the applicant has stated they got a permit for the cut. Okay, additional review criteria, on to the municipal criteria in section 6.7, phosphorus export. That is in there. Relationship to community services, that was explained. Retention of proposed public sites and open spaces, there is no proposed public sites or open spaces, although the board has suggested might not be a bad idea to do that for some of the property. That can be done in the future if the applicant wishes. Preservation of natural and historic features. Subdivision plan must include a landscape plan that will show the preservation of existing trees, replacement of trees and vegetation, graded contours, streams, preservation of environmentally desirable areas. The road and lot layout must be adapted to the topography. Extensive grading and filling must be avoided. Any comments on that? Traffic impact. Whenever situated in whole or part within the shoreland zone, the proposed subdivision must comply with the requirements of Chapter 4, shoreland zoning, including Section 4-U-6. Why don't we just go to, I'm going to go to 4-U-6 right now.
Mr. Chair, while I acknowledge that there's a portion of this property that's in the shoreline zone, we are not physically operating within that
Correct.
section.
Right.
I'm getting to you. Water quality. No activity may deposit on or into the ground or discharge waters of the state any pollutant. One of the following methods of phosphorus mitigation must be employed if the footprint of any structure is enlarged within the minimum shoreline setback area. That's not being done.
No.
A 50-foot natural wooded buffer strip must be created by allowing no. Okay, so no, there's no footprint being enlarged within any minimum setback area, so we can skip to the next one. Wells must be located within the minimum shoreline setback area if all of the following, wells may be located, that's not planned. No provision of this chapter may prohibit the revegetation or stabilization of a disturbed area if a stabilization plan is filed with the approved by the reviewing authority. I think we discussed that the permit was given by the state. The use of fertilizer containing phosphorus within the shoreland zone is prohibited. There won't be any area
We're not doing
doing
anything in
that.
any of those areas, so no.
Applications for proposed subdivisions partially or completely within the shoreline zone must contain information indicating anticipated water quality impact of the subdivision relative to proportional area within the watershed of any great pond. Planning board must consider such information, particularly how projected phosphorus loading relates to existed phosphorus levels, so forth and so on. Any comment on that? I mean, there's acceptable phosphorus with these buffers. That archaeological sites. Photographic, I gotta go back to subdivision. We have to come back to shoreline zone. Easement for drainage ways? So there are no easements for drainage ways, is that correct?
That is correct. However, there will be deed restrictions for those stormwater buffers.
Okay. Utilities? Required improvements, monuments, road signs, landscaping, sewage disposal, storm drainage. That's spoken to in the supplemental submission? Road or homeowners association? None is being proposed? Minimum lot size and lot frontage for subdivision lots. I read this earlier, I'll read it again. Lot size shall be calculated to include only net buildable land. The minimum size for any residential or commercial subdivision lot is 40,000 square feet per dwelling unit with the following exceptions, and then if it's served by either central water or central sewer, but not both, 30,000 square feet. The lot size by both central water and central sewer may be reduced to 5,000 square feet. You've heard my opinion. We can go look up definitions of central sewer. Well, we should look up definitions of sewer versus septic. We can look up definitions of central sewer systems. It's not in the code. There is a centrally managed water
Yeah.
definition, which we can play semantics, but that's pretty darn close to a central water system, and that's a state definition.
That's how I was reading it, was that in our ordinance, it was referring to the centrally managed water system, which then refers us back to the state.
Right, that's
definition.
in the affordable housing section. My point is, I guess, that we can certainly go look at other definitions, but centrally managed water system and central water system, let's go look at some other definitions if you want, but to me, those are, when I think of a central water system, I don't think of something serving two homes. And we've had this come up before, or two dwelling units. So,
And a dwelling unit, even though it's a duplex is two dwelling units.
correct.
Yeah. So if you take that definition, that's listed here, or that refers back to what's listed, it doesn't meet the requirement.
Correct.
And I would also
Depends on how
say-
far you want to go on definitions.
I would also say when it comes to density and stuff in central water systems, I would assume it means like town systems in the downtown area where you're expecting
Well, I
density.
don't think that's necessarily true, because if you look at that state definition, it points out, if you read the actual definition, it's served by 15 or more connections or 25 residents more than 6 months out of the year. So it could be a private system as well, not necessarily a public.
Could be, but that private system would need to be equivalent to be called a central water system. Here's a definition. Central water system means a private water company formed by the developer to serve a new community development in an outlining area. It includes water treatment and distribution facilities. Central water system means a city public water treatment and distribution facility. Based on what the state says and based on, I'm sure we can find something that says something different, but for me, when looking at the ordinance,
Yeah.
it seems to me that the clear intent is, and I'm going to come back to sewer. It seems to me central water system means central to the entire development.
Yeah, we can do that, I told you we can do it, so.
And if that's the case, we haven't gotten to central sewer, excuse me. If that's the case, that means you need 30,000 square feet of net buildable land
Which it still
each,
doesn't
which
have.
is 60,000 square feet, which still limits it to
Yeah.
a single-family home.
Now, we could reconfigure the lots going by that definition. And I've done the math, because I anticipated the chess moves, okay? I've done the math. We could put 2 more duplexes in there and meet the 30,000 per dwelling unit, 60,000, and put 2 mobile homes on 20,000 square feet.
Well, that,
Not our proposal.
that would be a
That's not-
different application.
Okay, it would be,
With,
correct.
okay? So I submit it's not a central sewer system, and does anybody want to disagree with me based on those
Did you say
definitions?
central water or central sewer?
Central water system.
So I have in Maine, a central water system, officially called a public water system, is shared drinking water system that supplies water through pipes to multiple homes, businesses, or facilities. Serves 15 or more service connections, homes or buildings, serves 25 or more people for at least 60 days per year.
I think that's pretty clear.
But it would be.
Could you just,
What's the source?
I'm gonna need that.
That's I think that's from the state
definition.
that's the state
Yeah.
affordable housing
So-
definition.
But you're drilling a well, currently the proposal is a well per
Correct,
building.
right.
So that's max, how many people can you fit in?
Well,
You
there's
said it
not
was two
15
bedrooms.
people,
No,
it's
it's-
two people,
Right.
two
Yeah.
dwelling units on each well.
So it's
It doesn't
not that
feel like a
25
central
plus.
water system. I'm sorry to use the word, it feels like a water system being shared between two dwelling units.
Yeah.
But
Which
I'm
we've done
certainly,
before.
Erica, any comments? No.
I'd like it to be otherwise, but that's a good scene.
What's that?
But yeah, no, no comment.
Let's move on to central sewer system. Well, let's move on to sewer, a sewer definition.
In Maine, a central sewer system, also called public sewer or municipal sewer, is a shared water system that collects sewage from multiple properties through underground pipes and transports it to a treatment facility. That is the definition of central sewer system. It says a private septic is an on-site tank and leach field. Pumping every 3 to 5 years requires suitable soil limited by lot size and soil. That's septic, that's private
Yeah.
septic.
Septic is common in rural areas, while sewers serve urban, suburban areas.
And what's in the proposal?
Pardon me?
And what's in the proposal, septic tanks?
Septic,
Septic for one duplex unit, so one
Serving two
septic
lots.
for
For
two
each building?
dwelling units.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not good. Should be fine.
Where did your definition come from?
The state.
Can you reference where in the state?
Yeah, give me just a second.
I have a central sewer definition from Legal Dictionary, and by the way, the board is allowed to pick whether it's Merriam-Webster or any other dictionary. Central sewer system means an approved sewage disposal system which provides a collection network and disposal system and central sewage treatment facility for a development, community, or region, or two. So that tells me, that definition tells me you would want a central sewer for the entire area. And then that would require the 40,000 square feet. So could I hear from other board members?
I don't see the individual wells as public water supplies.
Right.
Not central. We don't have central here. If we had one well that was serving, even if we had one well that was serving each duplex, we'd only have 8 service lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think central implies it's central to the area in which it's being done, the word itself. It doesn't mean distributed. I think also any comments, Jessica?
Just, Ken, I heard the definitions and how I understand them.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it.
Maggie? Angie?
Yeah.
Erica?
No, you're the Nancy has to say first.
Doesn't mean we have to like it. Erica?
Unfortunately, it seems pretty
Clear.
clear.
I think also there was, keep in mind, if this wasn't a subdivision, the requirement would be 80,000 square feet per dwelling unit. Is that correct, Ms. Day?
If the land use ordinance wasn't changed from that buildable land, this would work. And as I said at that meeting, this is nothing but growth control.
Well,
Right.
I think one of the reasons that's there, and I'm not gonna,
It's growth control.
one of the reasons it's there is to prevent higher density in area with sensitive lands, which is wetlands. And one of the reasons it's there is because we had overcrowding on lots and wasn't out in the rural area with a lot of wetland in them. And you're saying you have this much land to build on when you really don't. And remember, subdivision also allows 40,000 square foot
So
lots.
we double that.
It allows 40,000 square foot lots, which is an advantage over the current zoning. And that doesn't mean that it's 40,000 square feet, no matter what. I mean, if you're putting more density in an area, there's considerations than building a single home at a time. If this was a single home at a time, it would be the same result. It would be one home on each, be one dwelling unit on each 2 acres. This is,
You got a $400,000 or $500,000 home, that's what we'll get.
well, I understand.
I don't know if you do.
Well, I can't-
I think there was a path to do this, and I think you guys are just gonna cherry pick the definitions and get to where you wanna go.
Well,
I think there's an agenda
there's no agenda.
here. Okay,
That's your opinion, you're entitled to it,
thank you.
and you'll be entitled to, if you don't like the findings or the conditions, to appeal it. So, I think we need to vote on this particular one. I would accept a motion that, based upon our definition of central sewer system and central water system, that one dwelling, and what's stated in item K, that one dwelling unit per lot is allowed in this subdivision of 4.
You have LD 1829 coming down the pipe. We could put an ADU on each one of these.
You can put an ADU on them now.
Okay.
So
Well,
this
I
is,
mean, But you're limiting this to say it's one dwelling unit. I don't think that's an acceptable condition.
I can say one dwelling unit plus an ADU if you want, but it already states in the code, in the affordable housing section that, or excuse me, in the affordable housing section, that an ADU is allowed if a structure already exists. So there's nothing to stop you from doing that, I believe.
Except perhaps the condition on the signed subdivision plan that says you can only put one dwelling unit.
You know, I'm gonna have to maybe ask Ms. Day to come up here, please. So, these are suitable as single-family residences. The state law says that if a lot is built on, that an ADU is allowed.
Correct.
My question is, in the case of a subdivision which gets an approval as a single-family dwelling, okay? Does that change, or do we need to talk to our lawyer?
I think we need legal on that. I haven't had that come up yet.
Do you understand my question?
I think I do, yeah. So I think, I mean, I don't know. Because my concern would be that maybe a subdivision could place that, because they can have stricter rules that they can't have an ADU. But,
Correct.
you know, he would be making the rules on that. But I would definitely want to get some
How does the
legal
board feel about
on
this?
that.
So see, the reason I'm asking is because, I mean, I think Mr. Lopez makes a good point. If we write in there, single-family residence and don't mention ADUs, then he would, well, I don't know, you might have to come back for an amendment anyway if he puts them in there. Whereas in the other case, if we say a single-family dwelling unit and an ADU, then it doesn't have to come back for amendment. But I don't really want to say that unless I know that legally in an approved subdivision and given our density requirements that can be done. I think it can, but I don't know. And so, does anybody else have better insight than me?
And I definitely can get, you know, interpretation on that.
Okay, so I'd motion that before we sign the findings of fact and conclusions of law, that we get legal counsel to address whether ADUs are allowed in a subdivision, given our requirements for item K, for the density requirements, and B, if they are allowed, and this should be easier, must it be stated in the findings of fact and conclusions of law? So,
So you have no problem with any of you? You have no problem with the?
I don't know if I have a problem because I don't know if it's allowed.
I mean, if it is, aren't we back at two dwelling units on the lot at that point?
ADU has certain building
Right,
restrictions in
half the
our
size of the
code.
primary dwelling, I could have 1,000 square foot unit and a
Look,
500 square foot unit. Okay. I'm just pointing out the absurdity of the discussion, that's all, but you can continue.
That's your viewpoint. You're entitled to it, obviously.
So, Mr. Chair, I just quickly glanced on page 146 of your standards, section V2K, accessory dwelling units. An accessory dwelling unit that complies with the standards in this subsection K is not a dwelling unit. The purpose is applying the minimum lot size and minimum road frontage requirements, or counting the number of dwelling units when applying to a subdivision definition.
Wait a minute, where are you finding that again?
Page 146. It's under section, chapter 7, building regulations, under K.
Okay, well, that's building regulations. That's
But it does apply.
under 151 in what I have.
And there's a definition of accessory dwelling units, which is what the definition in the regular ordinance shoots you to. It gets into all the different sizing and everything. But that's essentially your definition.
That seems to say that it would be allowed to me. Could you just confirm that, please, Brenda?
Yeah, because one of my initial
Eh.
thoughts too, it may be allowed, but it may also require planning board approval. So that's my initial thought, but I'll
Okay.
definitely get some interpretation.
Could you
on that.
please get us that interpretation? That'd be helpful. Thank you. All right, where was I?
We have a motion on the floor, I think.
Yes, I'm sorry. So, a motion on the floor to consult legal that I read out. Does somebody want to move that? Moved by Ms. DiPietro. Somebody want a second? Second by,
Warner.
by Ms. Warner. Sorry. Okay, on to L.
Do we vote?
No, you have to do all in favor. don't you?
Oh, God, sorry. Thinking too much. Any discussion? All in favor? Are you in favor of consulting our attorney?
No.
Okay, all opposed? 4-1. Monuments? Road signs? Roads, there are no internal roads, so that's not applicable. There's no non-conforming roads, that's not applicable. Sidewalks may be required to be installed at the expense of the applicant where the subdivision abuts or fronts onto a major road. It does, but doesn't seem necessary to me. It'd be a sidewalk going to nowhere. Water supply system must be designed, approved, and installed according with requirements of DHHS. So when a well is drilled, Mr. Seymour, does that apply with the requirements of DHHS?
Yes, it has to provide adequate data that there's sufficient yield and sufficient water quality. That's why there's often tests done prior.
Okay, so that would be,
Time of occupancy. is
you're
usually-
committing to that, right?
Yeah.
That that's the
And
way it
that's
will be
usually
done?
required at the time of occupancy, I believe.
Okay. So I
Water
don't know if
quality
that,
tests and water yield, time of
so I don't know if
occupancy.
that goes in the findings or conditions, but basically you're committing to it, so it's probably in the findings. Fire protection? Sewage disposal? Fire protection. Well, what, you're making a funny look at me.
Yes. I think that the fire chief addressed fire protection because there's a hydrant, I believe, within a
Correct.
mile.
Yeah.
Right, so you're all set.
Yep. Sewage disposal? I think the hydrogeology report was actually excellent in laying out that there wouldn't be any issues with nitrate onto adjoining properties, and I thank the applicant for doing that. Surface drainage, long-term maintenance plan. The applicant says that one is not needed since there's no roads. They're gonna, I think it said in there that the applicant would take care of their driveways, their drainage, and other items that are commonly maintenance items. Buffers. Buffer strip of at least 15 feet is required along the existing road frontage. That's been done. Okay. So, we're gonna, sounds like I'm gonna propose we approve this with conditions. One condition is the land swap being complete to meet frontage requirements prior to construction. And I guess that would have to be recorded.
It'll be on the plan before you guys sign it.
Okay, thank you. The shoreland zoning line should be on the final subdivision plan. We discussed single-family residences only on the 4 lots to comply with subdivision dimensional and density requirements. So I don't think we need to say that. The forested and freshwater wetlands are already delineated, so I'll just put that in the findings. Is anybody on the board, particularly the two of you that went on the site walk, do you feel that the wetlands need to be flagged? More than what they were?
Not if they're gonna be not working down in that area.
Okay. Maggie, do you agree? Okay. Pins for the buffer are being placed or have been placed?
They're on the plan.
We discussed whether to plant trees or not, where the buffer's been cut. We discussed setback from DEP property. The HHE forms are gonna have to be, I don't know how we handle this, they don't get, so the HHE forms in there are for duplexes. Probably gonna be the same for a single-family
Yeah,
dwelling,
it-
but I believe, Ms. Day, how does that work? Do they need to resubmit the HHE forms based, and take out the line where the duplex is, or just?
Not really. They just need to be significant for, sufficient, sorry, so tired.
I think there's a box actually in there that talks about.
Well, it says duplex on the,
Those can easily be modified at the time of permit.
Yeah.
okay,
Sometimes what I'll do is if they get the permit, I'll have them just get a modification, or, they're gonna have plenty of septic for what they have there, so it wouldn't be an issue either way.
okay.
Or they could build a single house with 4 bedrooms instead of 2 bedrooms, same
Okay.
idea.
Do we agree with giving a waiver for the landscaping plan? Okay, I see heads nodding. Enough heads to be a majority, I think. Maybe we should vote on that. I move that a waiver for a landscaping plan be accepted by the board. Is there a second? Second by Ms. DiPietro. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. You raised your hand, right?
Yes.
5-0. And you raised your hand, Megan.
Yeah.
On the final map, those lots should be labeled 1 through 4?
Yep, and we'll correct that. I think they're on the current version, but we'll update that. There was another waiver, technical waiver for surface water runoff. While we did it for phosphorus, we did not do it for the flooding standard because it's implied we don't have roads, we just have single-family lots. That the phosphorus standard is a much higher standard than the runoff, and it has to be met within that, so we didn't specifically address the flooding condition.
Okay. And then either in the findings or as a condition, the hydrogeologist was pretty specific about the way he thought the wells should be
And
drilled?
we're not objecting to put a note on the plan to that point,
Okay.
about the casing being 15 feet or to bedrock.
Yeah, they do that anyway.
They do that anyway, so it's not a big deal, but
Okay,
Just
so
making
we'll
certain.
just have to put it in the findings, and there'll be a note on the plan. And I think that's it. So, I'll try to move this. I move that the preliminary subdivision plan for Middle Ridge Estates is tentatively approved pending the findings of fact and conclusions of law, with the following conditions. The land conveyance must be complete to meet frontage requirements and recorded prior to, or on the plan, prior to construction. Shoreland zoning boundary must be on the subdivision plan. The subdivision plan will be for single-family residents, will qualify for single-family residences only, with a follow-up on ADUs, okay? It's kind of a weird motion. And the septic form should be properly denoted upon prior to getting approval. And I don't don't think the lots labeled, all that needs to be on there. The well stuff will be on the plan, that will go in the findings. So, again, the conditions are the land conveyance, the shoreland zone on the maps, single-family residence only, adjusted HHE forms, and all the rest would go into the findings. So I move that. Is there a second? Wow, that was a tie. I'm going to give it to Angie. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Please raise your hand. 5-0. Okay, so if you want to submit all of this with the final subdivision plan, these adjustments, I think that's fine, because we've tentatively approved this. Just some timing on when you expect to do that?
When will you have your your swap?
Oh, I hope in the next week or two. It'll be submitted.
It would be very quick, okay.
Be submitted for the next meeting.
So in that case, do you want me to hold off writing the findings until you have the final plan?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
We'll write the preliminary plan findings then. All right, and those will be available in April. Anything else on this? All right, then let's go on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, for your time, I appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda, somewhere. Trying to take them in order. If I can find them, I can. So.
South High.
We'll get you out of here pretty quick. Okay. That's fine. I'll leave these, I'll bring them tomorrow. Okay? Sorry, guys, let me get back to the agenda. Too many computers. Oh, thank you. You're so kind.
These should be on.
All right, South High subdivision, Grinnell, South High Street, map 9, lot 36 and 36B, findings of fact and conclusions of law. You have those. I'd accept a motion to approve them unless there have been, you found any. Oh, did you find anything? Wait.
I should have asked you that first.
So, you didn't find any typos? Oh, my God. Okay. All right. So I accepted the motion. Who made the motion? Kathy?
Probably.
Who's? No, I said I'd accept the motion.
Accept the motion, yeah.
Kathy makes the motion, and who seconds? Angie seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. And now the library, which has been waiting patiently. I'd accept a motion to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law for the Bridgton Public Library expansion. Is there a motion? Moved by Ms. And I know you're missing your hockey game right now, aren't you?
It's fine.
Is there, in the second by Kathy?
Yes.
Second by Ms.
It's the
DiPietro.
last one.
Any further discussion? I
Now he's ready to
know
go.
that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. These are done. Congratulations to the library. And other.
Wasn't there
I think we've got one more.
North Star Estates?
North Star Estate subdivision.
Yes.
Sorry. Mr. Seymour, would you please come forward? Or, excuse me, Mr. Garish. So I'm going to cut to the quick here. We saw preliminary application sketch. Okay? We gave advice. Technically, we can do a site walk for a application sketch plan. And you are here, Mr. Garish, if I am correct, to ask the board if that's what they want to do, so that you can inform your submission.
That's correct, yes. We're still at the sketch plan phase, but we did submit, I'm sorry, my name is Bill Garish, I'm with Sebago Technics.
Sorry, it's late, we're all getting a little loopy.
Yeah, True North Builders, and I'll be very quick. But we did submit the sketch plan application back in December. There wasn't room for us on the January agenda, so we did wait till February. We were advised by staff that there wasn't room for preliminary review at this meeting, and now that I've been to this meeting, I can see why. So in the interest of keeping this process going, and we got some very good feedback from you folks at the sketch plan meeting. One of them was that you would like to do a site walk. We would like to schedule that site walk at your earliest convenience. We do plan to submit for preliminary within a few days in hopes that there'll be room for us in April. We understand that that may not be, or may likely not be the case, and we may have to wait till May. So anything we can get going and
Yeah, so
get out of the way would be appreciated.
it's Tuesday. Unfortunately, my handy helpers are,
Sidewalks, they have.
sidewalks
12
have to
days.
be notified.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, and I don't think it'll get it's notified in time for, so I think it has to be
12 days.
after the 17th, or I don't know if we can do it on it. We can try and do it on the 17th.
I mean, it's a Tuesday, it's St. Patrick's Day.
And I wish we could do it earlier, because the weather's going to be quite warm.
okay.
It's never warm on our sidewalks. Or it hasn't.
We might need to do it, we can't do it on the 18th. Well, you can do it, but I won't be here.
No, I won't be here on the 18th either.
To give it time to be notified,
Thursday?
could we do it on the 17th?
I'm fine with that.
Try it on the 17th? And Mr.
What
Garish, I
time?
apologize in advance because staff isn't here. If it can't be noticed in time, there has to be a public notice in the paper.
Yes, understood.
If that's an issue, then we would have to boot to another time.
Okay,
It doesn't have to include me, so it can be done when I'm not here.
okay.
What time would you guys like to do it? It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
It is the third Tuesday.
Are we having our workshop?
I was thinking of having a workshop, and the idea was for it to be only an hour with the community development director to review schedule for ordinance
So the sun sets,
at,
thankfully, at 6:52.
so.
So we can do it at 5.
Are you suggesting, Ms. Lynn, that we could do it at 4 o'clock?
Or 5. Just using our workshop time or right before 4:30?
Oh, I see. I'd say do it,
'Cause it'll
I'd
go
say do it, okay, so we can make an agenda. Well, this is a weird agenda. It's better if we did it at like, our site walks have been taking us 30 to 45 minutes. It's actually better if we did it at 4,
Yeah.
then started our meeting, because they're really two separate meetings, one's being noticed, but that was a darn good idea. If, I'll ask Brenda about it, if we can modify that, we will,
Okay.
and start it later. And then we'll
Bring
have a
snacks.
workshop, and I hope at least 3 of us are here. The workshop will really just be for, I'm gonna meet tomorrow at the request of the CDD to go over all the kind of ordinance changes that need to be made. So, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the workshop should be able to be only an hour. And it has to be on that day, so. Anyway, Mr. Garish, so we'll plan on the 17th at 4 PM.
Okay,
Does that work for you?
that certainly works for us, yes.
What's the
Okay,
address?
can we,
The 17th at 4 PM.
so we need to, I think we can do that by consensus. I don't think we need to vote on that.
Daylight entrance?
Well, because it was pretty clear everybody was in agreement. Okay, So I think any questions?
Nope, that's it.
And just flag the area so we know where the lots are and the road and all that good stuff.
We'll get that all marked out.
Looks like there's a question in the back.
Yeah, has any of this been actually, like, put into works? Like, has this actually been applied to yet?
No.
Okay, I own the abutting lot. And,
Yeah,
the only
so
thing I
the,
got
so
was
the,
back in
so the
December.
way it works is subdivision is, at least two components and can include three. So two components are the preliminary subdivision application, which has not been submitted, and the final subdivision application, which has not been submitted. But the applicant can request a sketch plan review, which has been done, and the board can decide to make a site walk based upon that sketch plan review, which should help the applicant in making their application, and that's what we're doing tonight. Nothing's set in stone at this
So
point.
then when they do actually apply for this, they'll send out new notices and everything else?
Correct,
Yeah,
and
and
there'll be a public notice for the site walk on this, assuming it's still on the 17th, and unless the owner of the land prohibits the public from entering the land, typically you're more than welcome to join the board.
And just, the public notice will be in the paper, it won't be like a direct neighbor.
No, because like I said, I got a
notice.
10-lot cluster development, it looks nothing like that.
So,
That's why I was
okay,
like,
well,
whoa, this is- yeah.
we'll get to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
we're all set with you, Mr.
Thank you.
Garish.
Okay,
I think thank you very much and for your patience. I think we've figured out we're having a workshop on the 17th.
Yep,
for
after the
no more than an
sidewalk.
hour. And we
Okay.
can and if we can move the site plan back, we will.
Okay.
And I promise you it will be, and you guys can hold me to it, and I'm gonna ask the CDD to
Well,
hold me.
Maggie will hold you to it. We know Maggie will.
Well, honestly, it is, anyway, I won't get into that.
Hey, we know what's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
We see it.
A motion,
I'll
somebody
move to
wanna move
adjourn.
to adjourn? Angie moves to adjourn?
One question, please.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
We have a letter that we got in the mail regarding the division of what is it? Division of lot number 1, Richard Hill subdivision, and that we were supposed to be at this meeting to be for or against kind of thing.
Oh, is that the hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, I wish you'd approached me earlier.
Well, we don't know, I've never been one of these, so this is very
That was
informative.
not allowed to be on the agenda tonight because there was some sort of procedural issue that and I think it had to do with, the notices. There were no dates on receipts.
The attorney filed and we didn't.
Yeah, so I apologize that you were here all this
I
time.
wish they would,
But it's likely to
not
be,
you, but they.
it's likely to be in April.
You'll get the $2,000.
Okay, now, we did have a motion on the table.
I'm sorry, he's still at,
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask another question. If we come and express an opinion on it, either for or against it, would that be taken into consideration?
yes.
Yes, if it's related to a standard, yes. We have performance standards that have to be met. I think you saw tonight, the board definitely considered that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for sitting through all that.
All right, there's a motion on the table to adjourn the meeting.
To adjourn.
All in favor?